Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 216. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Don't bother me, I'm trying to make Susie Fury's sexy meatloaf. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and chef of You Know.
What the hell?
You haven't read Welcome to Tranquility yet, have you?
I have not read Welcome to Tranquility yet, no. My comic box is at my sister's house right now, so...
Welcome to Tranquility, One Foot in the Grave, Issue 1 came out. We're going to talk about it on our next episode, because I know there's no way you and I are going to be able to avoid it. But if you've never read this series before, you can jump right in. Gail Simone gives you everything you need. What happens when a former hero who is part of a conspiracy that led to the murder and pain of many of Tranquility's finest is released from jail? It's an interesting commentary on today's media and how it influences the viewpoints of others. Also, that different people have different ideas on justice and responsibility in a crime. I do want to say that Zeke the Zombie makes an appearance, which is a selling point for me. But there's a really cool mystery story with twists and turns and a cliffhanger that will make you scratch your head and wonder what is real, what is not, and who's pulling the strings. I love this series. I'm glad to see that it's such a fun, accessible mini out of the starting gate, so there's something there for everybody. Obviously, if you've read the first 12 issues of Welcome to Tranquility, there's going to be all the right bits in there that you connect with from the previous story arcs. But this is really accessible. It gives you everything that you need from what's happened previously in order to jump into this one. The first issue was just really good fun. And the great thing is, Gail Simone, now this is the third book she's got going right now. Actually, fourth if you count that Wonder Woman 600 was just released recently. But this is really one of those series that if you're liking Secret Six, if you're liking Birds of Prey, this is really just a totally different experience from those. And it's really great to see such a diverse lineup from Gail Simone right now. I'm really excited that we're going to be getting 3 Gail books a month right now. So it's cool. But that's Welcome to Tranquility. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, you can pick up Welcome to Tranquility, One Foot in the Grave, number 3 of 6. Regularly $3.99, 40% off, only $2.39. This week, we're going to be discussing Welcome to Tranquility coming up. It's either going to be on the next episode, 217, or it's going to be 218. I'm going to be releasing 2 episodes next week, so I'm not sure which episode it's going to wind up on, but definitely pick up Welcome to Tranquility if you're not. And that's one of the great things about using DCBService.com. With that 40% off, you're getting a $3.99 book for only $2.39, so that's really great. Jim and I are both back from vacation, so we're going to be getting ready to be discussing The Cult. We're going to be doing a couple episodes now. We're going to be discussing things like the San Diego Comic-Con news, some new books and materials. But then after that, we're going to be kicking off our Batman the Cult review. So that is coming. InStockTrades.com carries that. It's regularly $19.99, 47% off, only $10.59 if you haven't picked it up yet. Remember that if you use InStockTrades.com for any of your trades or hardcover needs, you get orders up to $50, you get free shipping. I like to stockpile things. There's usually a bunch of books that I'm trying to follow, and if I'm trying to find a run of a series or things like that, and it's been collected in trades, I usually try to get 3 or 4 of them at a time to try to get up to that $50 mark quickly, especially if I'm getting hardcovers. It's a great savings, and to save on that shipping is also really helpful. So thank you, InStockTrades.com, for continuing to support us, and DCBService.com, your pre-order source. We are always on Get Your Geek On Radio. That's GetYourGeekOnRadio.com, an online radio station committed to making geek chic. They have wonderful programming over there, so definitely check them out and support Get Your Geek On Radio. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Remember to check out the Hero Initiative, heroinitiative.org for more information. And I'm a big fan of the Hero Initiative. I joined up in it's the first year that I signed up for membership, and I'm going to continue doing that from here on out because I'm a big believer in what they do, and I think we should all support them in some way. But just remember, even if you can't do like a full membership yourself, just the cost of a comic book periodically. If we're all doing that, it's going to help out the people who really laid down the groundwork for the wonderful comics that we're reading today. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing on the show. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Holy caffeine!
Guys, I want to kick off by talking about Birds of Prey number 3. It's another one of the Brightest Day titles. And it was funny, in preparation for our conversation today, one of the things that I've been doing over the last week is I reread Perfect Pitch, the trade paperback that actually contained Sin's first appearance in Birds of Prey, because this thing that's been bugging me is, I mean, not bugging me, it's the mystery, I should say, that's in this book is who is White Canary and what is her link? There was part of me that was thinking there was a possibility it could be Sin. There was a part of me that was thinking it could possibly be Sin's mother. Darrell, you and I have talked about this previously before. Mm-hmm. And one of the things when we were talking about it was we were both pretty sure that this was Sin's mom versus being Sin. Because I'm unless Gail's going to somehow explain a way that Sin would be aged, which is possible, the only other possibility would be Sin's mom. So I looked back into that story to see what mention there was of Sin's mom, and it seemed like Sin was one of those kids that was maybe abducted or brought in from some seedy method, and then she wound up in Mother's care when she was training Dinah Lance. And that's how Dinah got a hold of her, because Sin was like this orphan at this point. So we never had any verification as far as what actually happened to Sin's mom. Mm-hmm. I do know one thing. At the end of that story, Dinah turned on Mother, and Mother was training the next Shiva, the next person to take over for Leda Shiva when Shiva's time is done. Mm-hmm. So my thought is that either this is Sin's mom or this is Mother's next Shiva who is taking over. Because that's what she was going to train Sin to do if Dinah would not take the steps to become the next Shiva.
That's right. I forgot all about that.
So I figure for sure that this is, whoever that person is the direct link to, it's then either the next Shiva, or there's a link to Sin or something like that. I find it hard to believe now with this person's training that this person wasn't trained in some way by Mother. So it's an interesting little twist.
Here's the thing. I'm actually kind of in agreement, but there's something at the end of the book that just has me thinking this is going to be somebody completely else. This isn't going to be related to Shiva. This isn't going to be related to Mother. It's going to be somebody else.
You mean, but the references to Sui Jirja, to all of her past, you don't think that's an indicator that it's somehow tied to?
Well, part of me does agree. And I'm like, yeah, that's, it makes sense. And I'm seeing exactly what you're saying. I'm like, yeah, that would be flow. But it's just at the end of the last page.
Just say it. Tell us what it is.
Well, it's when Dinah's fighting, she's like, I know who this is. And she's saying in her head, she can be beaten, she's not invulnerable and all this stuff. But she's sitting there telling Dinah, you've already lost. You think you can beat me and win? And it's like,
you've already lost because the Penguin's the leader is what she's saying. Because of the fact that the Penguin has, and that part I totally get. But as far as, I think Dinah knows who she is because she recognizes the fighting style.
Yeah, from her mother. Like when that same, because she learned that same style herself.
But why? Where is the Penguin Shiva connection? Because it's like you've forgotten what a truly monster he can be. Obviously, she's talking about the Penguin.
Well, what is the Penguin savant? Penguin's running the whole show. Mm-hmm. Penguin's the leader, and he's put together a team. The same way that Barbara's put together the birds. So like Savant and Creote and White Canary and all of them are together under Penguin's banner because Penguin's leading them. But that doesn't mean they all came from the same source.
Right.
Like Savant and Creote came from their own training, and now they're obviously working for Penguin. I would assume White Canary has her own connection as well. She got through her own training, which I'm assuming now is from Mother. I'm not saying you're wrong, Jim. I'm trying to see where your line of thinking is going.
Well, what if Savant, like when Penguin got hooked up with Savant, what if Savant gave him the information that he needed to get to Sin or Sin's mother? Because they have her info. They basically know their cases.
So that's going under the assumption, which would make sense, that Savant was possibly contacted by Penguin first.
Right.
Huh.
And then from there, he got all her connections, all their family members, all the cases they went on, finding enemies that they can use against them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not arguing with you, Jim. It's more I want to see where you're coming from and your point. So, and I'm kind of cutting you off. So go if there's.
No. This is just a thought that I'm throwing out there. It's not. This is one of those things where I don't have a theory like, oh, it must be this. I'm just throwing out, what if there's somebody else? What if Penguin? Yeah, we're all in agreement that Penguin's probably calling the shots here. But what if is there somebody else beyond Penguin that could be the he?
Mother?
Would you call Mother a he, though? Is there
he would, but she would want revenge on Dinah the most, the mother, because she pretty much she defied her.
See, I definitely see this as the Penguin being the leader. I'm more convinced now than anything that what we've seen from Penguin in the earlier issues was us seeing him under the radar and finding out that he's really much more of a monster than we all realized. Which I think those lines at the end aren't just meant for Dinah, they're meant for us as the reader. We've been going along for the same ride she has, assuming the Penguin is something less than what he actually is. And now this story is going to really show us what he's really all about and how terrible he truly is. I think this is a reestablishment of the Penguin as a major villain, a major player, and also as a psychopath, a monster. You know, really showing us that this guy. We got to see some of his psychosis earlier on in the series in some very funny bits. Early on in the issue, I should say, in some really funny bits. But I do think that we're going to see it even deeper. The twisted nature of this guy to the point to see how violent and vile he can be. And I don't think the artwork on that last page is a red herring at all. I think that's a real indicator that we have got a true monster with him. Because you see the look on his face?
Yeah.
Right there, I think we see who the big bad really is. Now, I don't know that he's necessarily going to be the only one involved. I do agree there's a possibility that Savant and Creote and White Canary aren't it. And Penguin, there might be more to this. Although, at this point, I don't know that they need many more players in this little game that's being played here because the four of them are doing real well.
Yeah.
Well, remember, the Penguin almost got taken out by Black Mask at one time.
Right.
He was weakened a lot. So, I mean, this could be the thing he uses to put him back on pretty much put him back on top. Because if you're any type of mafia guy, you can't look weak in the eyes of other criminals.
I guess that's an interesting. I'm very convinced that the Penguin's the leader on this, but are we all sold on that?
Yeah.
Do you see him as a leader?
Right now, I see everything as him being the leader. All the information we're given, I'm 100% agreeing with you, but there's always just that swerve out of left field. I've learned to accept the fact that, one of the things that I love about Gail Simone's writing is I'm so convinced that it's going to be something, and then, it's not that. You think about back in Secret Six, we were all thinking, it's got to be, the father is involved. Hey, maybe it's the mother. Hey, maybe it's this. And it was something completely different.
Yeah.
And it's that style of writing, that style of storytelling that I'm actually preparing myself for. Now, maybe we haven't completely figured out this time, and I don't need to prepare for that, but who knows? You never know what you're going to get. That's some of the great stuff behind, with the story, of this. This is coming out of the gate. This is the relaunch of Birds, and we're getting hit with this story that builds and builds with swerves, mysteries, and even at the end of the third issue, we're still going, well, it could be this. Hey, what about this over here? So that's my excitement behind this series.
Yeah, because it could be somebody else who is might not be in charge, but could have just put the pieces together, put them in contact with each other, gave little signs, and then had them pretty much work out their own plan, but they manipulated from the background to do the one thing that they wanted to do, and that is to take down the birds of prey.
See, you know what? I totally agree with you guys on the swerve. And that's part of her writing. That's something I really like about her is that she does a fantastic job of building up that swerve, kind of twisting us a little bit, and I like that. But I think we've already seen that with the Penguin. If you take a look at Jim, you and I, like when we talked about the last issue of this series, we weren't looking at the Penguin as a leader, like where either of us was dead set on that.
Right.
We were actually speculating whether or not White Canary was even working alone at that point, because we were convinced that she was, strong enough to do that. And the way that it was set up with Huntress shooting the Penguin accidentally because of the whole situation that was going on with White Canary, I think that Gail's gone out of her way to make us think that the Penguin is a victim in all of this versus actually being the big bad. Now I think we're seeing the third part of 4 where at the end of the issue, we see some real foreboding that this guy is a lot more than we've seen. And I think next issue is going to be all about really showing us what the monster he is. Agreeing with you, though, Jim, that yes, there's a good possibility that's totally wrong, and we're going to get swerved yet again. So I do see that point. I'm pretty convinced at this point, though, that it's the Penguin. I do think that it's him as the big bad. But you're right, there's always that maybe, there's a little bit of this going on. It's funny with the next issue being the wrap of this arc. I do feel this group is not being created for a one-story arc. I feel we're going to see them either as ongoing protagonists or just really the kickoff of, I do see this relationship, this battling between these two groups being something that is not going to be isolated to one arc. We're going to see more of this group.
And it always gets me thinking. One thing that I've been thinking throughout all this is if the Penguin knows the Bird's secret, does he know Batman's secret? Does he know everything that Oracle knows, or only some stuff that Oracle knows? That's what I always wonder whenever, especially when she's handing out the files and, seeing what they know about all of them. Did he get full access? Did he get everything? And I'm hoping we get an answer on that.
Yeah, I'm thinking no, though. Because it was a point where everybody was finding out Bruce Wayne's identity for a second. I think he's getting a partial. I think he got information on the Birds, but I don't know if Diana even, with the way she does stuff, she might have everybody else's identities locked in another file or section and not connected to, the Birds and her files on all the other heroes.
Yeah, and maybe they only have the files on them because Savant and what's his name knew who they were. Mm-hmm. They've actually seen they've seen Barbara Gordon as Oracle, so they know that. So then they also know Dinah Lance. Is that okay? So that's how he was. So he pieced the information together. He didn't actually access her files, maybe.
Right, because doesn't he have a photographic memory?
Who?
Savant.
Well, Savant definitely refers to her as Miss Gordon. Because even when he's taking her, I was a failure as a hero, Miss Gordon. Knowing the secrets of others is the closest thing I have to a gift. It's funny. I'm wondering, does the Penguin know yet that Barbara Gordon is Oracle? Or does the Penguin just know that Savant knows who Oracle is? How much does the Penguin know? How much does White Canary know? We know that they know the true identity of Dinah Lance, but have they been given the information yet? Or is Savant still holding that secret? Because knowledge is power. If he's revealed that information to the Penguin now, has he revealed too much and is that information now useless to him? I would think yes. So I don't know that Savant's revealed this yet, which makes me wonder: is Savant going to survive?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
So it's interesting. The more that I think about this issue, and the more that I think about this series, the more I wonder what is life going to be like for the Birds, because at this point, if Barbara Gordon's revealed as Oracle, how does that reveal the identity of Batman?
That's true.
The only reason why I'm thinking is does he know is how did they get the information? Because if it's in a file, that's the only reason why I throw that out there.
Well, Savant and Creote have the information because they worked for Oracle.
Right.
So they were given access. They were a part of the team, so to speak.
Well, that's the thing. How much access did they get? Did they get access to see the other heroes?
Have you read all of the Birds of Prey that Gale wrote?
Yeah.
You remember when they were part of the team.
Right.
So they were trusted allies. So they know her identity as Barbara. Once you know that she's Barbara Gordon, well, she wouldn't. I see what you're saying. You're saying would she have revealed to them that Batman's Bruce Wayne?
Right.
Why would she do that?
Right, and they didn't go after Stephanie. She was a wink they could have went after. They didn't go after her.
So there's nothing to indicate that they would know anything about Batman. Mm-hmm. They would know everything about their allies in the Birds, but not Batman.
Right, because they had to work with a lot of the allies in the Birds, like her network. They had to work with a lot of those people in the network, but maybe. And he doesn't forget things. Like he could remember every time they had a conversation or he heard something, and they were comfortable, talking about their lives or whatever. He took a name and remembered it and looked it up and investigated the name and pieced it together little by little because it looks like he's had plenty of time to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, he's been planning this the whole time, or most of the time.
Well, I think he became frustrated when they got beat. Didn't they help her with another case, and he pretty much, him and Savant and I forgot the other guy's name.
Creote.
Didn't they get jumped or beat up or something like that? I think with the calculator, didn't they have...
Yeah, because remember, the Birds were basically they weren't functioning like during the whole network stuff. If we're going on, were they part of the network? They weren't. Savant and Creo weren't part of the network, so they wouldn't have been a part of the whole bat thing that was going on then.
Right.
So they wouldn't have had access to that. Going off of what you're saying, Jim, there was no situation where they were working as a part of Batman's group, where they would have files with access to, Bruce Wayne, Tim Wayne, Dick Grayson. They wouldn't have access to those things. On the other hand, they would have access to their allies and birds, though.
Right.
But here's another thing. A possible connection to Bruce being Batman is the fact that the Batcave where Oracle is currently operating out is underneath Wayne Manor.
But do we know how she got them there, though?
No, he's got a very good point, though, because they
capture her inside the cave.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, but remember, Bruce built a bunch of redundancy things where the cave is not exactly the entrance to the cave is not exactly close to the mansion, so that if somebody was to discover the cave, they wouldn't necessarily know that it connected to the house.
Right.
Okay.
Remember that? I remember a particular story where he built it, like when they rebuilt it away from the house enough so that just wouldn't happen, just in case, something like this.
Something like, yeah.
So it's interesting right now. You're right. And actually, that's right in my face, Jim. Good call. The fact that they do pull her from the Batcave. So they at least know that Oracle has a Batman connection, for sure. Right. And they know how to get into the Batcave because of their relationship with her. So there's they at least have that much information about Batman. We know that for sure.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting part of this whole thing is how much do they know about Batman? Which, again, I'm back to we might see Savant die more than once.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's a reason for Savant to keep his mouth shut. Because if he reveals all of his information, if he gives it all to Penguin, what use is he then? Is he in danger then? In this type of criminal world, to give all of your information out and to play all of your cards, all of a sudden gives you a weaker position. He uses that for blackmail purposes.
Mm-hmm. And she took all his info. Like when one of the things she did when she brought him in was she pretty much took all his double dealing and took all that info and pretty much defamed him, just took all that away. And he kind of said something about that in this issue where I tried it your way and you pretty much made me weak by trying to do it your way.
Jim does have me pretty convinced, though, at this point that he knows at least something about Batman. Maybe not the identity, but he's got certainly enough of a connection between the two of them that that is not something that she would want revealed.
Yeah.
So I do agree that that's an interesting point because of the Batcave in and of itself. The fact that he knows how to get in the Batcave, even though I agree with you, Darrell, that I don't think that necessarily says that Bruce Wayne's Batman, but there's at least that knowledge that there is a Batman tie there, that she knows Batman very well. It's going to be interesting to see, are any of the birds going to have their secret identities after this? Or is that going to be destroyed for all of them? Because Dinah's already been taken, her secret identity. That's already been revealed. Well, Barbara's. Is that going to be a part of this? Because that's something Savant's holding over her head right now, and that's what they're going after. Barbara's very strong. Is that something that she's going to let go? Because that puts Jim Gordon at risk. Anytime Oracle gets in a position now all of a sudden her father is a target.
Yeah.
So Barbara's reveal, even more than Dinah's at this point, is much more dangerous because I don't know, I guess because of the way that Sin was hidden, I don't think that Dinah's reveal puts Sin in any danger.
Well, they mentioned Sin last time, didn't they?
Yes.
A news article mentioned that she had an adoption, but she decided, I don't want the kid. So they mentioned her, and they mentioned they were going to go try to get it talk to Sin.
And why even put that in the story if that was released?
But the question is, will they be able to find Sin? And is it going to be that? That's because this stuff is being laid out there by it's a slander campaign because they put the murders out there that Dinah committed murder as a way to discredit Black Canaries as a character. She's not a hero anymore. They're trashing her, not only her ability to have a secret identity, but they're also trashing her costume identity. It's really forcing the birds into a situation where they're going to have to go after this, either find some way to clear their name, or they're going to have to go deep underground. And we might be seeing a very different status quo for the birds in general coming out of all this. They may need to go deep underground to protect those that they love. I'm really curious to see next issue who knows Barbara's identity.
The crazy thing is, there was a thing that he said that I didn't like, kind of bugged me out. Savant said, "You're going to expose your true identity, everything you've ever done as Oracle, for the whole world to see, and then we put an end to our mutual pain." Now, what did he mean by that?
I don't know.
Yeah, what's the mutual pain part?
Right.
Is it, well, his pain is that he got defanged and that he, was made weaker and just he wasn't himself. So is he going to go back to the way he was before he got a connection to Oracle, before she tried to cure him or help him or rehabilitate him, or however you want to word it?
Or suicide? I mean, what is he going? Where is he going to take it? Because he's not all there.
No, I don't know. I'm really, I don't know if he thinks hiding from your true self is what he's talking about, because he feels he's been hiding from his true self, and Barbara hiding her identity from the world is her hiding from her true self. Is that where he's going with this? I'm confused on that. I'm not in a bad way. It's something I'm interested in, but it's something about this character where
he's childlike. Like, even in his most smart and dangerous way, when Oracle dealt with him, one of the ways she got to him was he is a child.
Well, he's a spoiled brat.
He never matured.
Anybody who blackmails somebody else is clear. I mean, it's the most bratty behavior you can possibly have. Because you're not getting what you want, you find a way to take it and force people to deal with you on that level. So
right.
It's what he's doing here is very, very twisted. I'm just curious to see how that's going to play out. Creote's the wild card in this one because he's very caring of Barbara. How far will he let Savant go? He's very respectful, which is in his nature to be that way anyway. I do believe his loyalty is totally to Savant, but how far will he let that go? How far will he let Penguin go?
Like I said, I think that he's going to stop him. I think he's going to say to Savant, "You're making a deal with the devil, and I will have to," because he loves him so much. I think he's going to stop him from going through with this.
The question is, and that's really the question mark right there, did Barbara... She was trying to turn them both good. Did she succeed with Creote? That's going to be the question mark. That's what we're going to have to find out here. Or is he a gray area somewhere in the middle?
I think he serves two masters. He loves Savant and he wants to protect Savant, but he also, I think he was the one that was kind of happy to be work with Oracle, because I think he felt they were actually doing some good. And it was more positive for Savant. But, I mean, I don't know how far his mind goes and whether he wants to protect Savant from danger or protect Savant from even himself.
Yeah. You think about just any relationship, any of those bad relationships that we shouldn't be in, that we stay in too long. There comes that point in time when you sit there and you realize, okay, I got to end this now. And we may see that point out of Creote where he realizes, I have to end this. This is something I have to stop. I have to protect him from himself. I have to do, this one good deed. And so who knows? This is one of those things where who knows how this story is going to end. Yeah. Right now, you could throw out 100 different theories, and every one you can argue, and every one you can say, yeah, I could see that. And it may be 101, may be the ending. And that's why I'm just, I'm chomping at the bit for this one. When I came back from Italy, I jumped into this title because I had to read this. I had to know what's going on. It's, that's why this is always the top of the stack, because of these mysteries and these, these unknowns.
The real question, the interesting question is going to be, at the end of the day, do we believe Creote would 100% turn on Savant? I don't know that I see that side of it. So when we were talking about that right now, I see that as an option. But I think there's an equal option. I think he's 50-50 right now. I think he's a coin toss where I could see Creote going just the way that we said. I could also see Creote staying loyal to Savant, and that being where his decision is. So it's going to be interesting to see how that character plays out. I do think he's a wild card in all this, but I do think there's also a good possibility he will stay with Savant. I do think right now, if it were me and I was in this situation, he's definitely the weak link. And if I'm going to appeal to any of these four, it's going to be him. Do you guys think that all four people have the same information?
No.
Jim?
Probably not. I can't believe that Savant and Creote would share everything they have. I can't, this is a villain team. You don't have full disclosure on a villain team because you want to always have that little bit of information that the other ones don't have. You want to have that power. You want to have that position of influence.
Yep.
It is, when I'm looking at White Canary's last line, she goes, "No, I am but a poor village girl, Miss Lance. Where do you suppose I got the money for this operation?" So at least the financial backing is coming from Penguin at this point. That doesn't necessarily guarantee that he's definitely the big bad in all this.
Right.
But I think the poor village girl bit does point to the fact that she has come from where Mother was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that really more cements the link, at least to me, to Mother. The question is, like Jim said earlier, does Mother have a bigger role in this than we even realize? I never thought until you threw it out there, Jim, there's a possibility Mother is actually playing a deep role in this and she might be the big bad. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how this all plays out, if it's just these four or if there are more players in this game yet. Because the Penguin has to take down, although you would argue that the Penguin has his own minions, but at this point, Hawk and Dove, Lady Blackhawk, and Huntress are all with the Penguin at the moment and being led into a trap.
Yep.
Believing that the Penguin is on their side because of convenience. So
Yeah.
Mother wasn't poor, though, right? Because Mother was pretty much training assassins, wasn't she? To be used?
Yeah, it was never really clear to me, at least, reading back at that story, how financially lucrative that was for Mother. Obviously, a lot of times you got a question, being that she's a martial artist and all that, is she content with a simpler lifestyle, or was there more to her than we know? We don't 100% know everything about Mother yet. So if Mother is being brought into this story, there's certainly more to tell with her. So there could be a bunch of curveballs coming out of that as well. So I don't know. I don't know if Mother's even going to be a part of this one, other than I'm leaning towards whoever this person is, this White Canary, that she was trained by Mother. That's the way I'm leaning, that she is the replacement for Sin. I'm not thinking Sin anymore as the child in question, unless when Sin is eventually revealed, we find out Sin's now older than we realized in some way. And is that something that could have been pulled off? I don't know.
I think that's the last knife and the nail in the coffin for Dinah. I think they got Sin back, and she's been with Mother.
So, yeah, and that would go back to I know who this is. I don't know. I do think there's a small part of me that thinks it might be Sin, but it's a small part of me. I'm more leaning towards the fact that we're now seeing Sin's mother revealed.
Well, either Sin's mother or the replacement. This is right. And I'm actually leaning more towards that. If it's going to be somebody trained by Mother, I'm thinking this was the replacement for Sin. This was the next one that came up when Dinah left.
Why couldn't that be Sin's mother though?
She mentioned the eyes. That's the only thing that makes me think of it. It's somebody related to Sin, because she mentioned those eyes look so familiar.
Yeah. Okay. I completely forgot about that line. See, now I'm leaning again. Now I'm leaning towards Sin's mother, because she would have Sin's eyes.
I don't know. I do know one thing. We really didn't talk about the beginning of the book. The Penguin's mind is a very scary place. I felt I needed like a bath after seeing that.
And why was Hawk there? I
don't know. Yeah, and he was pretty.
Yeah,
because that was a dream. You're right.
Yeah, leave him out. You sick mind, you. Just why is Hawk in the room? Yeah, and even in the dream, Hawk was like, "What are you looking at me for?"
I tell you, talk about just amazing artwork. I love, this is just a very, it's a great story, but it's also a very beautiful book. And every time, Ben is just one of those artists that I really enjoy, but Nia Rufino on coloring, every time I think I've seen her work on a book, I'm like, dang, that's just a beautiful, beautiful book with just a lot of bam, popping of the colors, nice the shading, with the inking and the coloring kind of, it just, I'm like, wow, this is a cool look.
Well, it's interesting. The artwork is done by Ed Benes and Adriano Mello are the pencilers. Mm-hmm. Ed Benes and Mariah Benes are the inkers. And then, like you said, Nia Ruffino is the colorist. And it is funny how, as we're looking through at the artwork, it's the whole art team has really done a nice job on this. It's hard to do a book like this where you're throwing in a lot of sex appeal without losing the fact that these are incredibly strong characters. Mm-hmm. And showing them in formidable fight situations where it's really impressive. Because the birds, I mean, they're sexy characters, and there's something to that. There's nothing wrong with that. I really actually like the balance in this one of, sex appeal with the fact that I feel these are A-list strong characters. And that's always a balance that they skirt with characters like Wonder Woman as well. These are physically fit characters because of the fact that they fight in combat and things like that. They're going to have that, so there's going to be a certain sex appeal to them. And I do like the balance of this in this book. It's a hard line to skirt. And to keep, I didn't mean it that way.
You said skirt, and I'm looking at the picture of Lady Blackhawk.
Yeah, and I really did not mean it that way. The second I said it and you chuckled, I'm like, oh, man, I'm in trouble with this.
Then you make me think of the detective story, the old style of dames and skirts.
Yes, absolutely. But, when we see his Twisted Dream sequence, that was where you see a very different balance. And then when it shifts back to them in combat, there's those sequences where Black Canary is standing off. And this battle with Black Canary and White Canary is really important because, to me, that whole situation with her and Huntress, and Huntress really telling her that you need to cross a line. See, this leads more back to Mother to me than anything else. When she went to Mother, she made this pact with Shiva that, she was going to go to train and Shiva was going to take her place on the birds, and that the two of them would have to each learn something about each other's world. Dinah made sure that she was half, and when I was reading back in this, there was a reference to that she was half in Shiva's world, half in her world. And that half in her world would keep her from doing what Mother wanted, to keep her from killing. This was something that I really liked in stories like Night's End, where Bruce was being trained by Shiva. He went through this gauntlet in Night's End where he was fighting all kinds of foes to get himself back in tip-top shape because his back had just been healed. And he had the memory of how to fight, but the physical memory wasn't there. He needed a crash course, so he went to Shiva for that. In this story, we get to see Mother, where she's training Dinah and wants Dinah to be the one to take the place of Shiva, wants Dinah to be a killer, and uses Sin as a bargaining chip to say, if you're not going to do this, if you aren't going to take these steps, then that's fine. When you leave, I will just train Sin to be this person. So it put her in a real tough situation, which is why Dinah turned on Mother. And I do think we're starting to see here a sequel to that because that was never resolved. I don't remember Mother ever appearing again.
No, Mother, that's what makes me think maybe Mother has something to... Because she promised... Because Mother's whole thing was... Mother was legend. Like, she trained these girls. She was legend. You go to her if you want to be the best. Mm-hmm. And Dinah pretty much... I'm kind of got the feeling that she was the first person to train under her to actually tell her no.
And especially so disrespectfully.
Yeah, she was totally just at the end. And that's a big, in all the martial arts movies and stuff, and even in the culture, just really in the culture, it's signs of disrespect. That's to do something like that, to be disrespectful like that. That's something that I could see Mother waiting years to finally get revenge on her. And remember when we talked about her, everything points to them making her want to kill, trying to get her to take a life.
Yeah, trying to get Dinah to break her code.
To cross that line. Once you get her to cross that line, you have broke Dinah. Mm-hmm. When you do that. That's the worst thing you can do to Dinah, is to get her to take a life because she's so against it.
The interesting part is this whole bit where they're trying to get the birds to choose who's going to die next. Mm-hmm. They're really trying to break... The strength of the team is the team's loyalty to each other. And it's like they're trying to attack that loyalty. See, to me, what I see this as... I agree that that a lot of those things are on the table, and that's what they're trying to go after. But I think what we're going to see here is that the birds are much stronger than these people realize, and that they're going to throw all this viciousness at the birds, but they're going to turn on them and surprise them and win in the end.
Yeah.
And sometimes winning in this case can be surviving the situation, making it through to be able to change your status quo, to be able to tighten things up, to be able to, like Barbara said, beef up your security. Even if it means them going underground or building a facility that people like Savant and the Penguin and none of them are going to be able to get at. Putting them in a place where, because there is I guess their base. We've already heard that their base is supposed to be like a centerpiece of Gotham. That they are going to have this strong, and it obviously is coming out of this story. We're seeing why she's not going to go back to the Batcave after this, and why she's going to have a facility that nobody's touching her in. So I'm not just touching her, touching the whole team in. I don't see Dinah killing out of this at all. To me, after what she's gone against, I do agree that they're trying to push that. They're trying to push her buttons and push her into that state, and they've got her in that place. But I think Dinah at this point, the type of person that Dinah is, and with everywhere where she's been, being leader of the Justice League, everything she's gone through on Ollie, where to the point where she had to turn on Ollie and tell Ollie, what you did here was wrong. You have, and she actually divorced him over this.
Yeah.
She walked away from him because he did this. Dinah would die before she would kill. I really do believe that in that case. Fundamentally, she would. The only situation where I could see her possibly killing somebody is if it would save the life of somebody else. It would save the life of one of the birds. I guess I see her finding another way, though. I think it's important for her to find another way. I don't know. I guess it's an interesting case. I guess I don't see her taking that step. It fundamentally goes against who she is. Yet I agree with you, Darrell, that it's on the table.
Yeah, I think that's obviously their goal. I got money on Dinah. She's not going to take a life. It's too much of who she is, too much of the hero in her that she's not going to break the code. Well,
here's the reason why. I think one of the things that one of Gail's goals with bringing the birds back together, and this might be something we disagree about. That's okay. I think one of her goals with bringing the birds back together, though, is to show that Dinah Lance is not just Dinah Lance, the whole team are A-listers. To remind us who Dinah Lance really is. I don't see her starting that off by having her kill, because I think that would fundamentally go against who that character is. Although, there is that part of me, and I'm with you, Darrell, in the sense that I would be okay with it if it was to save the life of one of the birds. She has no other choice in this case. It's to save the life of one of the birds. I don't know. Especially with them being a part of Gotham right now, if they start killing, how is Batman, either Batman, whether it's Dick Grayson or Bruce Wayne, how are they going to react to one of the birds killing somebody as a way to, because that's breaking kind of the Bat code. Not kind of, it is the Bat code. You don't do that. So with this on the table, it's an interesting debate and subject. I guess I don't see it going to there, but I agree that it's on the table. So I can't say that it's not there, because it is. So
you remember the panel that she did, though? The only reason I'm kind of thinking somebody might make a choice that's going to be really bring them to a dark place, because she said when she was talking about what she was going to do to them, part of it was to bring them to a point and have them come out of it stronger than they were before this started. Because pretty much all of them are in I think Barbara's going to really be hurt, because for the first time in a long time, she's actually felt helpless by what happened. And that's a serious thing for her. Ever since she's been, the Joker shot her, her main thing is to never, ever feel helpless again. Mm-hmm. And they did that to her. When she said that she can't, the tears want to drop out of her eyes, that's that right there, that little, in her head when she thinks that hurt me, because I knew that really hurt Barbara to be in that situation, to be helpless, to feel helpless like that.
I think what the part for me that will more clarify exactly what you're talking about, Darrell, is I think the gray area for me right now is I don't know who knows what. Mm-hmm. I know what Savant and Creote know. I know at least what we've seen that White Canary knows. I don't know what Penguin knows. So all of this coming together... See, if Penguin knows everything, killing the other two is irrelevant.
Right.
I don't see him knowing everything. I think he knows enough, and I think Savant has offered that I can bring you Oracle. I can guarantee you that I can get you Oracle. Mm-hmm. At the very least, he's at least helped on some level, I think, with the information that White Canary has. Although I do feel, I wonder if the Penguin hasn't gathered people who have personal grudges against the birds.
Yeah.
Is he, well, and that goes back to, did he get in contact with Mother? Did Mother come here? I don't know. You know, I guess a lot of my thinking depends on who the big boss is in all this, too. I'm still thinking it's the Penguin, but the Mother part is offering a different possibility, if it is Mother that's running this. Or if, you know, she's this new assassin is doing Mother's bidding. This is, you know, an edict handed down, because I don't feel Mother has to be here in order for Mother's bidding to be done. I think if we're assuming White Canary is attached to Mother in some level, that could be, that alone, the severe reason for hatred could be either that it is the replacement or that replacement's also Sin's mother. I don't know that it necessarily has to be that person, but the eyes, like was mentioned, could be the dead giveaway that that's exactly who that person is. I'm just really intrigued by this story.
Me too.
And the question is, I guess, and here's the funny part, Darrell, I'm convinced right now we've seen as dark as it's going to go for the birds. But what if I guess now I'm thinking, what if I'm wrong there? 'Cause the title for the next issue is Impact Fracture. So what does that mean? I don't know.
Because remember what Gail Simone said? She said there are things that she put in this book that in her proposal that are darker, or that she felt was so dark that she was surprised they let her do. Remember that?
Yeah.
They said, so this is not, with Gail Simone in Secret Six, this is nothing. She said they were even going to go darker with some of the stuff than even what she's done with Secret Six. If you go back.
This is just the beginning of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe, what if they do a full disclosure on all of the birds? If Barbara Gordon is out there and everybody knows that she's Oracle, what if the further darkness is what happens to Jim Gordon? What happens to Huntress's students? If that's the further darkness? If at the end of this, if after the end of issue 4, it's out there.
Or what if they let him die to protect that secret? That's something that would really eat at, not at Huntress, but it would eat at Dinah and Barbara. It would eat at them.
I guess, how would that bring them closer, though? Wouldn't that take them, like, that guilty secret? That's the type of thing that destroys people. Or, you know, is it that they find a way to come together and get past that? I don't know. See,
they came through a lot of stuff together. I mean, and they've had issues where they pretty much said, I'm done with you. You pissed me off to the point where I don't even want to see you again.
Yeah, it's the...
It's
they're
fun.
Family. They're sisters. I mean, they're family. Like, they've been to the brink. They've seen each other at their best and worst.
See, the only question I have, and the only reason why I could see a lot of horrible things happening to them. I don't know that I necessarily see them doing horrible things in return, as much as how they get past the horrible things that are done to them.
Right.
I guess the reason why I'm saying that is one of the strengths that I liked in the first issue was showing how much this relationship has changed all of them, and Huntress included. Where Huntress Huntress is this person in general who would kill in an instant before in this situation. I don't know that she would now. And I think it's because of this relationship that she's been bettered. I'm very curious to see the direction it's going to go. And it's funny, I'm sort of disputing you, Darrell, but I agree with you that those options are on the table. So I'm disputing you, but I'm not. But there's that part of me that sees this other side, too. I agree with you that it's going to get... I can't imagine it getting any darker than it is, because this is pretty dark. But with the title of Impact... I don't think that Impact Fracture is going to be... I mean, what she had Savant do the first time through, it was like something out of Misery to what she did to... Dinah before. So I agree with you that there's a good possibility we haven't seen anything yet, and that they'll go to all kinds of lengths to get Barbara to do what they want her to do. So this is all about power.
But think of the first beginning of the book. All of them are trying to save a child. I could see Dinah taking a life. Like, if Sin's life was on the line, I could see I could see Dinah taking a life to save that child. But I can also see her eating her. I can also see it eating away at her because she would still blame herself. Even though she did it to save a child. Even though she stopped a killer to save a child, she would still hate herself, and it would eat away at her, and her friends would be the only thing that could bring it through.
See, and I'm very torn on that, because I keep wondering if the point here is to take them to a place like that and have them rebuild from that, or to show us that they can be put through all kinds of misery, and yet they're good enough that they can beat it a different way.
I can see that too.
Yeah,
I think that's what I'm saying. There's that part of me that has a question mark. So it's not, like I said, I don't think this is an issue of, I really don't firmly feel like I'm sitting here thinking, so boy, Darrell, you're wrong, or, you're seeing things that are completely different. When you're saying the things you're saying, I'm like, okay, these are definitely things on the table. So I see that. I see the other possibility of it. So it's really, and I think that's one of the things that has me chomping at the bit for the next issue, is not, I like the fact that actually, this is more of, Jim, when you were saying earlier there's mysteries, I think this is the mystery.
Yeah.
How are they going to get out of this? Where is it going to go? I'm chomping at the bit.
I love it.
And you know what? Honestly, Jim, the other mystery is there, and you were right earlier. Who is leading this? Mm-hmm. The hint is that right now we're convinced that we don't know what kind of monster the Penguin is. So we're going to see the Penguin for something more than he actually is. But you are right that there is on the table, is he actually the big bad, or is he just another member of the team, and we're going to see that he's just as evil as Savant and White Canary, and there's something bigger. I don't know. I don't know in that, and I agree that the possibility of him being the leader and not being the leader are probably just as equal in this one.
Here's another thought to add to that whole thing, that we got White Canary and Black Canary. That's the person going after Black Canary is White Canary. Person going after Oracle is Savant and Creel. There's the connection there. Huntress is from Gotham. Penguin's from Gotham. What if Penguin is Penguin is just a operative like everybody else, and his target is Huntress?
But I guess,
that is so true, though.
I guess, yeah, I kind of get that. Except I don't see them going as far as having a Hawk and Dove person and having a Lady Blackhawk person. That to me almost seems like too much.
Well, Hawk and Dove is a wild card. Like, they just got it.
No one would have known that Hawk and Dove would be on the team.
Right. I guess the question is, I mean, we went from saying that we thought White Canary could handle this all to saying now that there has to be somebody for each grouping.
Oh, I'm not saying there has to be. That's the thing I love about this title is I won't passionately defend anything because I really believe anything can happen. Mm-hmm. That's just something that just popped in my head as we were talking. I'm like, hey, what about this? And that's, as I said before, there could be 100 possible options out there, and the 101st may be what we actually read next issue. That's the excitement of it.
I do feel that next issue it's going to be one of those endings where we're going to be like, where do they go from here? Because there's a lot to do next issue. Depending on how this is going to play out, it could be that this ends in such a way that it leads into the next arc, where it's a continuation of this in a different arc. I was surprised when I saw that this was part 3 of 4. I guess I was naturally assuming this was going to be a 6-issue thing or something like that with as much as what's going on here. But expecting that, and her last run was very much like this, where it was one big ongoing story as it was going on. That I think that being that this is an issue 4, the next part, or part 4 of this whole thing, doesn't mean anything other than the fact that it's going to wrap out at least the first segment of this, and then it'll continue on to the next segment. It's more like a big chapter in the whole piece. Because I do feel that this is the beginning of a very big story versus a small contained story. I think we're all pretty much so in agreement on that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it feels huge.
Oh, yeah.
Very meaty series. When you talk about this, there's so many directions you can go in with this series, and I'm just so impressed with how it is written and what it brings to the table. And I'm so thrilled this is back. And it was funny going back to take a look at the previous series to kind of get a flavor for what was Sin's background, because that mystery of White Canary is something that, to actually read that mother's story, it so felt like a prelude for this. after you go back and read that. And I encourage everyone, if you're enjoying this, it's called Perfect Pitch, and it's the arc that introduces sin. It's very, very good, and it's well worth reading because seeing Dinah train, it actually, it makes her all the more impressive. And going back and seeing that bit, I'm like, whew. Anybody who says this is an A-list character needs to read this. And when you mention a martial arts, you guys were mentioning martial arts movies earlier. That so totally fits into that whole theme. Like, I was thinking to myself when you guys were saying that, I'm like, martial arts movie, this should be a DC animated movie. I would love Birds of Prey, the DC animated movie. I don't know if they would go there because it seems like they're trying to go to some of their more well-known properties.
Maybe, but they did Jonah Hex. I mean, why not? I mean, why not throw a 15-minute movie? Like, with animation, you can do that. Like, why not take just a 10, 15-minute thing and have them go in a case together?
Well, see, that I think now going off of that I agree with you on. I guess what I was saying, I don't think we would see a full Birds feature.
Oh,
yet,
no, I wouldn't think that.
But that would be a great way to introduce them, to do a short feature. Like, that Spectre one was super cool. I know we're getting a Jonah Hex short feature on the Batman one that's coming out. Is that next week? I think it's released on Tuesday.
It got to be. It's after San Diego, so I think, yeah, because they're gonna have a Friday night is the premiere of the movie at the con, and then I think the DVD, like they did with New York with Wonder Woman, and then you can get the DVDs the weekend after. I think that week.
Yeah, it's the 27th. I just looked it up, so right. It's Tuesday that we get that Under the Red Hood.
Yeah,
the Jonah Hex on it, which we're gonna have to do an episode on that.
Oh yeah,
I definitely want to talk. Are you getting that when it comes out, Darrell?
Oh yes.
If you want to come back and join us when we do the discussion on that,
I'd love to.
Yeah, the plan to come back and we'll have a big discussion on Under the Red Hood as well. Because that I agree with you though. If we're gonna see something from Birds, they would do what they did with Spectre and Jonah Hex versus it being a main feature. I'd love to see that. I hope these shorts are making them say that, hey, this is great ways to introduce these characters and to get people more interested in them. I would love to see that because I loved how stylized the Spectre was, and I would love to see a Birds story, even a Black Canary short feature where it just focused on Dinah, showing the training. That whole training sequence with Mother that they did with her.
Awesome.
You could turn that into a short feature and you got your movie right there.
Yeah.
Look at I can see the woman. I saw Predators. Did any of you see Predators?
I did.
Have not seen it yet.
I could see that woman in that movie being Huntress. I could see that. I could totally see that.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's funny. I think movies like Jonah Hex have hurt. See, I liked Jonah Hex, but I don't think it did anything to move forward doing some more obscure comic films. Like trying some characters out like Birds. I think Birds of Prey is going to be a hard one to get to like the big screen. And I would love to see that on the big screen because I think stories like this would make a killer movie. I mean, this right here, you could really just say, take this initial arc, that's your film. Go make your film. It's right here.
Well, you got the script.
There are so many female shows, so many female-dominated shows right now, like Haven starring a woman on there, a detective. She's pretty kick butt. They're going to bring back La Femme Nikita. Warehouse 13, the woman in that is very strong. She's a very strong character. I mean, the thing is, if these things do well, like the Angelina Jolie movie,
Salt,
if these things do well, I can see them saying that, the studio saying, okay, what characters do you have that we can do something with, like an animated or some type of half an hour, TV, something we can throw on a DVD.
See, Salt is getting great reviews, and I'm hoping that a movie like Salt does well because it does open up opportunities to then make a Wonder Woman. And I think Wonder Woman's our first chance of getting something like this. To make a movie like that, if Salt does well, I think we do have an option. And I hope, though, when they do that, they just do it right. I think that's, like, my big issue with Jonah Hex was there was a few things in there that I think kept it from being a great movie. And if you're going to do one of these characters like Wonder Woman or the Birds or something like that and put them on the screen, you got to do it well. Salt's getting good reviews right now because it looks like, and I want to see it because of this, it looks like it's going to be a really good, well-written film, lots of action, interesting character to follow. And if you do that with one of these great characters and keep them true to who they are, these characters are tailor-made to be on the big screen.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Or just cable alone if you can't.
Sure.
Do it that way. Cable has been like FX and whatnot. Cable has been a very good proponent of doing things where the studio, NBC or CBS, they would say I wouldn't want to do that. Nobody would watch it, but something like an FX or a TNT, they would look at it and go, "Let's try it."
I'm the second you're saying it, I'm like, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
know.
I think it's a hard sell. I'd love to see it though. And I think that movies like Salt will change the playing field a bit. Because I think right now Hollywood's assumption is that female leads, female characters in this type of film don't sell.
Yeah,
and I think it's because there hasn't been that many great ones out there. But I think something like Salt, this is the opportunity to start seeing some of these things come back again. And I'm not saying I agree with that viewpoint. But I'm saying that's been the excuse that I've read on a lot of responses to what's been the holdup with things like Wonder Woman. Although we've heard more rumblings now about Wonder Woman. So I'm thinking that view is softening and that people are getting that, like, wait, this is kind of a unique thing. And I keep going back to Wonder Woman because I do think that is our launching point. And I think Wonder Woman's the type of film that could get Birds made. I do, because I think if that does well, they're going to start taking a look at some of their other female properties and consider greenlighting them, or at least start working on development of them and taking a look at possibilities as far as where can we take these. So I'm hoping something like that gets made and made well, because I do think that opens up a different opportunity. I think those are the types of characters. Have you guys both seen? I'm assuming you have, Darrell. Jim, have you seen the Green Lantern costume?
No, I haven't yet.
The Ryan Reynolds one?
I saw a quick picture, but I haven't seen anything, detailed and or multiple screenshots.
Did you see the cover of the magazine that it was shown on? That's on Facebook. If you go to Raging Bullet's Facebook page, can you do that right now from your computer?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Okay, guys, I want to talk about that controversial Green Lantern costume. What do you guys think about this? It's one of those things where, first of all, when I'm looking at it right now, my first thought was I was torn on it, but not as torn as I've been. Like, there's been some that I've seen over the years that have been like, whoa. I do like that it doesn't look like, some of them look like they're wearing this, like, excessively padded suit. And I do think one of the nice things is, with it being Green Lantern, why would Green Lantern need an excessively padded suit? So I'm glad it doesn't look like they're going that route. It is more sleek than some of the other ones that we've seen from other heroes. It's more Spider-Man than Batman.
Right.
If that makes sense. At first, when I looked at it, it bothered me with all the glowy green around it. But then I was like, his ring is powered up as we see him on the cover. So is this what he looks like when he's powered up? Because they can't show necessarily
a force field around him,
the aura, the way we're traditionally used to. Is this a way of showing what the aura looks like? I want to see more than this. I'm not through the roof thrilled, but I'm not like on the other end, where I'm like looking at it and going, ew. I'm not in the middle. I'm definitely more in the I like it category than the I don't like it, because the mask is right. I like that the mask is more of a painted on look than like something bulky again. Because I don't want him to look Kyle Rayner. No. I want him to look Hal Jordan. If they bring Kyle Rayner in, at some point, because it looks like they're going to do the core in this. If they do a character like Kyle Rayner, then I want him to have the more padded mask. That doesn't fit Hal Jordan. It definitely looks a lot more Hal Jordan than I thought it was going to. I'm leaning more towards the I like it.
But I think this might not even be the final suit. This might be his training suit, if they go the route of Secret Origins type.
Ah.
The only reason why I wouldn't say that is if you look at his chest plate, he has the full logo there.
Right. That's true.
But they could maybe, I don't know, or this could be him just powering up and putting on his costume for all we know. this scene could be, it could come in on multiple layers where you get this initial zing zing kind of deal, to show like the costume materializing. But I kind of like it.
What do you think, Darrell? Do you like? I mean, there is no right or wrong answer here. That's why I thought it was interesting to talk about it. Where are you at on it?
I don't know. I kind of like it. I think, and the thing is that it's hard to see how this really looks because it's like a 3D picture, but they put it in 2D. So I need to see it on the screen to get a really good look on how it looks. But I like that they are kind of saying that the suit is basically a construct from the ring.
Yeah.
So you get that type of feeling from it. Like the suit, pretty much, the ring provides, whatever you imagine it provides, but it also has to keep him warm, cool him off when he gets hot. Jeff Johns pretty much put a lot of thought into setting it up that the ring it provides what you need. Yeah, like a suit, like a symbiote in a way.
I definitely am more into it than, like, I remember when I first saw it. When I first saw it, I was like, whoa. And I think my expectations are always, I want to see the exact costume from the comics. Except the problem is, a lot of these comic costumes don't translate well to the screen.
No.
If you leave them as is. And in this case, I'm glad to see that it was. And like I said, the bulk thing was my biggest worry. I was afraid we were going to get something. And it's not a knock on the Batman suit. I actually really liked the way that Batman Begins introduced the suit and did the whole Nomex survival suit thing. And that, I loved that. I dug that. That fits for Batman, though, and fits into his story. For Green Lantern, that doesn't fit at all. And this fits a lot more Green Lantern than... Actually, even when I first looked at it, I am encouraged by the fact that when you look at like the upper chest piece of it, you see more of that glowy nature of it. But when you look down like where his stomach is, you see less of that, which leads it more to that theory. It's the ring powering up that's seeing it glow like that. And when he's not powered up with the ring, it's going to have a little bit of a different look to it. Which I actually like that as well because it shows that we're going to get a visual a visual piece to the whole Green Lantern costume. I wanted to talk about it real quick because we haven't really talked about it on the show, and this is something that happened while Jim was in Italy, that they released this picture of it so far, and at least for initial impressions, Ryan Reynolds looks like Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
I mean, even in plain clothes, when they showed pictures of him on the set, I looked, without him saying anything, I said, why? I think people assume, they say they don't like him as Hal Jordan because they've seen him in other types of roles, like with Blade, Trinity, and Deadpool. So automatically, when you say this guy is playing Green Lantern, some people just automatically say no, he can't play that. But if you look at how he's been written, for so long now, especially with Johns, he's the playboy. He has he's wisecracks a lot. He's very he's the guy without fear. The Daredevil type of character. And Ryan Reynolds, I see that in him in stuff he's played before.
See, and that's the funny part. To me, there's joking. I totally agree with you joking around, and I'm not saying you were going in this route. One of the things, Deadpool jokes around and wisecracks too, but he's a lot more slapstick than Green Lantern's going to be. Mm-hmm. And, his whole shtick is very different than Green Lantern's. So it's all about acting. Ryan Reynolds is acting. He's playing a different role now. He's going to be playing Hal Jordan. If he plays Hal Jordan like he's Deadpool, I'm going to have a huge problem with that. I just don't see that happening. The look on his face to me is a dead giveaway that this isn't, we don't got a smirk on that cover. No. That's willpower we're seeing right there in your face. No, I mean, and his facial expression there is really important to me in all of this because you get to see in his face what is he like when he's playing Green Lantern. And right there, I see a guy who gets what Green Lantern's all about in that facial expression. That's really important to me in all this. Actually, even more so than the costume, it's does this guy get that, this man's concentrating. This is all about will. He's got the most powerful weapon on his hand. The way that it works and the reason why he was chosen is because he's got willpower. He's able to instill, and use that great willpower. And obviously they're going to be going to that here, with the sharp ties to DC with this movie. And, it's growing on me. It really is growing on me. I'm in a place right now where I like it a lot versus when I first saw it, I was like, not so sure. So it's funny how some time will let you kind of settle on something, and you take a look at it and like, whoa, I see a lot more that I like about it because it doesn't have the things that I was worried about.
Right.
I tell you something else, just as I'm looking at it more and more, you think about it, the concept that it's the energy ring, that it's the energy power and all that stuff. I like the fact that we may be getting the costume kind of like pulsating with the energy itself. If that for me kind of is a nice little feature. I'm imagining and or speculating that the energy lines we see will probably fluctuate. They won't probably be a constant color. But I think that'd be a nice little add-on that you can't do in a comic book.
Right.
I don't necessarily want to see that all the time, though. I want to see times where he's powered down. Because that would be, to me, symbolic of his aura when he's powered up. Because it'd be kind of hard to do the bubble on him on screen, which I think is going to be a little bit different than in the comic books. Although there's ways to do things like that. I'm sure we'll see some of that with CGI and lighting and things. There's ways you can do that. But I think this is going to be more of the aura showing, that he's powered up. I would like to see a powered down state where it's not always glowing, because to me then the confusion would be, well, is it the suit or the ring? What's powered up here? And, it's to me it's got to be about the ring. And then it all spins out of the ring. Any lighting that's on the suit is totally on the suit because of the ring, not the other way around.
Well, I'm thinking it will. I'm thinking they will use the glow of the suit to go with his emotional state. Like when he's very determined in battle, that's when you see the glow, or when he first powers on and does the oath, and then maybe when he starts to get weakened, you might see the glow kind of pulsate a little bit, like to show that he's weakening because he has to recharge.
Huh. And see, that I would be okay with too. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how it's going to be actually in practice. I feel like I did when the first pictures were being released with that Smallville episode, with the JSA. I remember seeing some of those costumes and loving them, and other ones being like, I really want to see what this looks like when it's moving around. And I'm in that place. I want to see it.
Yeah, I was like that for Hawkman until I saw it.
Oh, I was like that with Hawkman too when I first saw it. That was another one where when I first saw it, I was like, okay, I want to see it on screen. And then as I got to see as I saw the picture more and more and let it kind of settle, very similar to this, it grew on me. But it was definitely one of those things. Once I saw it on screen and saw it in practice, it worked. So I want to see what this looks like on screen and in practice. I can't wait for a trailer.
Yeah, I really want to see the trailer, and I want to see what the other members of the Corps look like. I hope they do personalize the outfits per Green Lantern.
I like how I hope they do it like how Ethan Van Sciver showed each member using the power in a different way. Like, Guy Gardner's power, it crackles because he's so fiery in his personality. And everybody has a different style, and I hope that's what we get to see with each one.
Cool.
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring, and in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
Guys, before we go into talk about Superman number 701, I wanted to talk about that Brightest Day teaser image that came out this week on Tuesday over at DC's Source Blog. First of all, it's gorgeous artwork. But besides that, it's another one of those where there's a ton of clues and a lot of unanswered questions. You start over in the bottom left-hand corner with Jason and Ronnie burying the Black Lantern Firestorm, which, we've been getting these kind of hints since the beginning of the series that the Black Lantern Firestorm is somehow still there. And now it makes me wonder, is it that Ronnie remembers? Or is what's going on with Ronnie and Jason that they're being influenced by the Black Lantern Firestorm? That is part of the whole Matrix? And is that what's driving a lot of their behavior? I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating on that at this point.
I really think Ronnie remembers what happens, and he's been lying, trying not to deal with it.
But I can't help but wonder. I mean, we've seen definitely that the Black Lantern Firestorm is still a presence.
All of them are still affected by that. It seems like in Brightest Day, everybody that's been brought back is still somehow affected.
I think what I'm specifically going to is like those bits with the atom, though. where there was something else there.
Right.
Like, unlike the other ones, they directly came back. The way Firestorm works is a little bit different. It's almost like that there was a Black Lantern version of the Matrix, if I'm correct on that, and that's still kicking. So I don't know what that means for Firestorm and how this is all going to play out, but it's...
I'm thinking it's a metaphor for Ronnie and Jason, because they really have to deal with the big elephant in the room is what happened with Jason's girlfriend, and I think that really, they have to work together to deal with that. Like, if they don't, you see what happened when they're not dealing with it, and even apart, they're still having dreams about it. They affect each other, and I think that part of this burying the firestorm, I think it's like a metaphor for we have to pretty much get past this so we can both move on.
Did either of you read issue 6?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Sitting on the pile.
I don't want to say too much more then. You read issue 6.
Okay.
And I actually recommend it to any listeners. Read issue 6 because it kind of changes the complexion. Everything you're saying is true. There's something more, though. So, I mean, yes, amen to everything you said. Ditto, agree, 100%. But there's something else. And I'll leave that at that because I don't want to ruin that for you guys.
I'm loving it.
Brightest Day has really been incredible. The Hawks, I love seeing that bit. This directly. See, I keep wondering what's going to go on with those two. And I'm hoping it doesn't wind up at the end that the two of them can't be together because of what has happened. Because you see what happens when the two kiss. There's actually a negative effect on each other. And that's from Brightest Day number 5, so I'm not going to spoil anything for either of you on that one. The two of them kiss, there's actually a negative reaction.
Yeah, I remember that, because they even said, like, what's happening to us?
And you actually see in their faces, they start to get, like, the Black Lantern cracks. Mm-hmm. It's like that. It's almost like they're decomposing when they kiss. So I wonder if that isn't somehow not only an effect of what's happening with what happened with the Black Lanterns, but the fact that their Black Lantern original bodies, the original bodies that were also Black Lanterns at that point, are under the control now of their greatest enemy. And we're seeing an element of both of them. I don't know. I'm curious to see what's going to go on. I'm loving their love story and how it's all playing out in this.
Right.
It's definitely a beat that I'm really enjoying. We talked about it before we started recording. Hawk and Dove carrying Jade, and we're seeing in the JSA JLA crossover right now that the Starheart and her power are playing into this, and inadvertently the Starheart followed her to Earth. It's not something that she caused. It doesn't seem. But I'm wondering why are they carrying her? I'm hoping she doesn't die again out of all this. It's funny. Out of the 12, I want to see all of them survive this.
Yeah.
So it looks like she's alive though, because Dove wouldn't be holding her neck if she was already dead.
That's a good point too. So I'll be curious to see where her story goes from here, and if the crossover is going to be it, or if there's actually more, if it's going to go beyond the crossover, because that Starheart story I think is going to be key.
Well, when that Aquaman and Mira comic starts, I'm just saying that because I want it.
I'm with you.
We'll get answers, because I just want that really bad.
I do too. I really want that now. With Aquaman and Mira, let's talk about the reveal with Aquaman and Mira in Brightest Day number 5. We know now that Mira all along has been lying to Arthur.
I knew it.
I know you had mentioned it previously on your show. I didn't see that coming. I knew there was a secret. I thought there was resentment for the death of the child. That's where my head was going in this. You actually thought that she was sent to kill him.
It just made me think every time, like, she's been so protective of Arthur, especially when he came back, and she made a big deal about, remember with Joe Kelly, she turned on him again when the sorcerers pretty much, they were using drugs or whatever on her to turn her back on him the other time. And it just seemed like there was something she wasn't telling him. And I just kept thinking, what if she never talks about her other world. So what if she was sent here for a different reason?
And I like that story quite a bit. I like what's going on with them. I'm agreeing with you that I want to see a series. And I like how you said Aquaman and Mira. Because I agree with you that the two of them together, she cannot be background. she's got to be foreground. The two of them together in the series, working together, I'm glad that they're making a new Aqualad. I actually like the whole look of the character. I do find him interesting. I'm curious to see what his whole story is. I think it's going to be a very dark story for him, as far as learning, what his deal is and his background. Darrell, you and I talked about this previously, and we were mentioning the possible links with Black Manta.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that Black Manta is his father, and because of the water abilities he seems to have, I'm wondering if his father had an affair with one of the Atlantean Mirror's world, and that's somehow he came about from there, and they've been hiding him.
It's interesting, behind him, when he's fashioning that sword out of the water powers, you see Black Manta's eyes that are right behind him. It's right by the hammer of Dead Man, where he's nailing in Rise onto the tombstone. Yeah. So that definitely, why would he be behind him like that? It's, a very Darth Vader-ish kind of...
Yeah, because that looks like a water sword.
Right.
And, I mean, what would his father want to do if you find out you have a son who's part Atlantean and has those abilities? They would want to keep him away from his father, but his father would pretty much want to manipulate his son. So I'm hoping you got Arthur and Mira kind of mentoring the child, but that would be such an emotional roller coaster to find out that your father murdered your mentor's son in cold blood. Like, what does that make me?
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I like about the sword that he's fashioning, it says adventure to me. It is more like swashbuckler and that type of thing. I like that because if there's going to be an Aquaman and Mirror series, I want there to be an adventure aspect to it, because you've got this world, this vast underwater world to explore. And while, you got to do stuff on the surface too, you're remiss if you don't do a whole bunch of stuff underwater, and there should be an adventure aspect to that as well. And I just loved the styling and the creation of that. And the way that looks, the visual look, I like his costume a great deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It definitely, it's got a cool look and style to it. Not your traditional, but it fits. And I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with him, flesh it out. I immediately thinking Teen Titans would be kind of cool, just because I'd like to see new blood get mixed into Titans. I think that'd be a neat, possibility there.
Not if they bump out Aquagirl to do it, though, because I like Aquagirl. And I'm not saying
that's what's going to happen.
You think he's going to bump out Aquagirl?
Yeah, I think Aquagirl is going to go to because did you see the Static is going to get an ongoing?
Yes.
Nice.
I'm wondering if Aquagirl is going to maybe be a co-star in that book, be a supporting character.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just don't want her to. I don't want them to kill her because there's no reason why she can't be a supporting character in an Aquaman, whatever they're going to do with it, just like Aqualad can be in it too, because it's worked in Batman. Like, there's no reason you can't have multi-characters in an Aquaman book if they do it.
I like Aquagirl a lot, so I'm hoping they don't. I like her in the Titans roster right now.
I do too.
I don't necessarily think that... I'm kind of torn. I hope that it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to throw him on the Teen Titans. I think if there's a reason, I know JT Krull is going to be taking over that book. From the images I've seen so far and the look of the lineup, I don't know that I necessarily feel that he has to wind up there at first. He actually could be more... I remember in Titans, when I was... Aqualad and Aquagirl were both a part of Titans, but they were more of reservists.
Yeah, they never joined. They were always... Because I think Marv Wolfman had said he had a hard time coming up with stories to have him in it. To have them in it because of the water limitations.
Right.
So he didn't want to just have them sitting there so he wouldn't use them as much. But because of that cartoon that's coming out, I'm not saying it'll happen right away, but I think they're going to move towards having him on the in the book to go with the cartoon. So when people see the cartoon, they'll have something to look at.
The only reason why I'm going to be a little cautious on that is I see the cartoon coming out leading to a new Johnny DC book with Teen Titans versus if they follow suit with what they're like. Batman Brave and the Bold hasn't influenced the DCU. It's spurned its own Johnny DC or DC Kids title. I'm hoping that this new Titans cartoon kind of spawns its own cartoon spin-off book versus affecting DC Universe continuity? Because I kind of like that those animated series are a little bit separate.
Mm-hmm. Well, the only reason why I say they might be trying to get the comic to look a little bit like the Young Justice cartoon is because they pretty much announced Aqualad in the look around a little bit right after they showed the promo pictures of the cartoon.
Ah, that's an interesting point.
And didn't they say that they want to, because of the changes they made, they want to bring the media a little bit closer to the comic so that, you know, if you watch it on the cartoons, the people that are watching cartoons and going to the movies, you kind of want to give them a product that they can go to and buy to read.
Well, I agree with that, except that they also firmly feel that some media is geared towards like the younger fans, and some media is geared towards older fans. You know, like a Batman Begins, they want stuff like that to be more in line with the tone and feel of the DC Universe proper.
Right.
Whereas, like Batman Brave and the Bold, clearly they're not going to start moving the comics, you know, the comics that we're reading in the direction of Brave and the Bold. That's geared towards a different audience. So you see, Young Justice I take a look at as being more tied into the DC Kids crowd. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to watch it too, and I'm going to love every minute.
I can go with that because they're canceling quite a few of the Johnny DC books right now, and that usually means they're going to start some new ones.
Right. So I'm looking at this as being hopefully leading to a Johnny DC Young Justice book.
I hope so.
Because if you take a look at the Young Justice team, it doesn't have like Beast Boy and Raven, at least from the preview images so far, which are two characters that are featured prominently in all of the preview artwork of the JT Cruel series coming up. So, you know, it is a smaller team that he looks like he's focusing on.
Well, can Mike Norton please draw it since they canceled the Shazam series? Please, Mike Norton, please.
I am so mad that series is canceled too.
He was having such a ball, and I talked to him at Super Show. He was just so excited about having a book where he could experiment and do, you know, and just take chances with his style on a book. And since it's not tied into anything major, he can get away with it a little bit better.
Let me ask you guys this. If a series is canceled and you haven't been reading it, but you hear good buzz about it, do you still find yourself interested in picking it up? Because I do.
Shield.
Okay, yeah,
you
okay.
guys did that to me.
Yeah. And did it being canceled, did that detract you at all from wanting to read it?
I have all 10 issues. A friend of mine in California, his store, it's a comic book store, she's going to get me the 10, put it in a package for me, and mail it to me.
What do you know the name of the store, man?
I can't think of the name. And Lori, I don't think she's online right now. But I cannot think of the name.
Oh, if you get the name of it, if you call in or next time we do a recording or something like that, shout it out. Just because I think it's...
will.
Yeah, I think that's kind of cool. What about you, Jim? Does that... I mean, there's no right or wrong answer here. I'm just kind of curious, because I think that's kind of an interesting thing. Does the series need to still be going on in order for you to have an interest in it, or is that... How do you prioritize?
It helps dramatically, but I would look into trades of a series that was dead and done, more likely than going after individual issues. Now, like with example S.H.I.E.L.D., I picked it up as it was coming out, but if I wasn't 10 issues, I would think, yeah, I can maybe pick up 10 issues, or that would be I think I'm more of a trade person if it's over and done with.
And the reason why I mention that is, when we were talking about the Billy Bats and the Magic Shazam being canceled, that's a book that I can't recommend from start right now to present day as just a fun series with a lot of depth. There's a lot of story in that series. I mean, the dialogue in that one, the closest thing I would compare it to is Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. If anybody's taken a look at that book, the amount of story density in that book, you look at it as, well, it's a duck book. And you immediately kind of diminish it because of that. And it's so not true. It's actually one I use in my classroom when, parents say, well, my son's reading a lot of comics. I'll put that in front of them and say, let me show you what comics can do. And I guarantee you can stack the storytelling up in Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck with any chapter book that is geared towards kids, especially third graders. Right. Billy Bats and the Magic of Shazam, the trades of that one are going to be in my classroom because the storytelling depth in there. I have the Tiny Titans ones in there. They're wonderful as well. I'm not knocking that at all. I love that book. That's such a fun and exciting book. But it's a different kind of book than Billy Batson. And it's one of those that I would use as a justification book to say to parents, here. Because a lot of times parents need to see the words.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they dismiss it as just being pictures. And those books are the ones where I can, and then I can say, I'll start using that to talk about sequential storytelling and what the art does for the story then. And how it, to justify for people who don't understand comics, I think they've got one picture of what comics are, and they don't see how diverse the medium is.
Right.
And they think they are just quote-unquote funny books. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's the sad part is, I think we as fans now, anytime you say that a book is fun, you're somehow insulting it. To me, I think a lot of times the fun part is, I think, the hardest thing to accomplish, to make a book that's truly funny, that truly makes you laugh. I think it's one of the strengths of Tiny Titans is I chuckle every month when I read that book. But I think when you're talking to adults who've never read comics or haven't read them since they were very young and kind of forgotten what comics are really all about. You show them books like Billy Batson, you show them books like Scrooge McDuck and things like that. You show them the kind of storytelling depth and the sheer amount of words that people are able to put into comics and tell those kind of in-depth stories with. And you really send a different kind of justification to them. It's kind of sad that we have to still do that with comics because to me, I'm a big believer that anything that's getting kids to read is a good thing. I grew up reading comics, and I love reading not just comics, I love reading novels and books, but comics were my launching point to reading, to my real joy for reading. That led me into novels. So, it's for parents who are having trouble getting their kids to read, if they're reading comic books, I'm like, don't discourage them, encourage them, because this is going to lead to a love for reading as a medium. But Billy Batson's a book I'm very sad is canceled, because that's one I was looking forward to just buying. Obviously I'm going to get a few trades out of it. I was looking forward to getting the whole series as it continued on in trade and putting it in my room and having it up there as being something that I would gladly send home with my students, want to take it home. Because I let them take, stuff out of any of the stuff that's in my classroom library. I let them take home, bring it back, and because I want them to get that library experience, and so cool. It's the whole point. And Billy Batson's one of those books. My heart was like dropping because I've put all of them in there. The new ones, Super Friends. I've got Brave and the Bold, and Billy Batson was the one that I've been waiting to put in my classroom. And when I heard that, my heart dropped. I was like, no, I wanted Billy in here because it was going to be, my other Scrooge McDuck.
It's kind of sad that that they dropped two of the Johnny DC line books like that. It just, I don't know. We were growing up, we had so many comics that we could read, and they weren't named. I think sometimes when they get named something like a Johnny DC or Marvel Adventures or something, the first thing kids say is, "You're trying to give me a kiddie book, and I'm not a kiddie. I'm smart. Kids don't want to be talked down to, so they don't necessarily go for those type of books sometimes."
I think I liked the Johnny DC. I don't know, maybe you guys can correct me on this one. I like the Johnny DC label better than DC Kids.
Yeah.
I think the second you say DC Kids, our age group is going to have a little bit of a problem picking it up too. Or, I would, even taking the Johnny DC label off of it, I would love like maybe DC All Ages or, something to designate that this is for everybody.
Yeah.
Versus, see, Johnny DC, I kind of like that even though we knew it was the kids line, it kind of, more to me, it wasn't like in your face. When you say DC Kids, it doesn't bother me any, because I'll pick up the material, based on creators that I like. I'll try an issue or two of it. If it's for me, I'll know really quick whether or not it's for me by reading it myself and seeing if I enjoy it. I thought the Johnny DC line, I thought that was something that was a little bit more open to everybody than when they switched to DC Kids. I was kind of baffled by that choice, because I would love for them to kind of take a look at those books and brand them in a way where it's all ages. Because to me, like the Young Justice cartoon, I love animation. Brave and the Bold, I'm loving watching that show. So the Young Justice cartoon, if there's going to be a comic book, I'm going to try it out if I'm liking the cartoon, because, it's going to be more adventures like that. It was the same way that I liked reading that Justice League Unlimited book that tied into the cartoon. But I think that it needs to be branded in such a way that people can feel comfortable trying it if they're an adult as well. And that's the type of stuff, too, that I think I got to get that into grocery stores, because I think any of those cartoon tie-ins, they need to be in grocery stores.
It's true. The like how even with Marvel, with I was talking to Joe Caramagna, and he was talking about trying to do a book that kids can read and adults will have a good time with, and it was an Iron Man story that pretty much was all ages, but it didn't feel like they were making it a child book. It just was Iron Man having a fun adventure without them going over the line.
And there's nothing wrong with a book that's written straight for kids. You know, I mean, there's novels that I clearly read that are clearly written only for adults. You know, there's novels that I read growing up that were clearly meant for young adults. You know, I don't have any problem with them categorizing comics like that. That's fine. But I do think that, like, you know, Tiny Titans to me, that's not a kid's book. That's an everybody book. It has things in it that are geared for kids, like some of the puzzles and things like that are clearly geared to be entertaining for the kids. The whole feel for the book and the jokes are for any Titans fan. Any Titans fan can get the jokes. They're very tongue-in-cheek and slapstick. They remind me of, in Marvel's books, and I don't know if they still do it, they used to have little 3-panel cartoons that were in Marvel's books, and it was something that I really enjoyed because they were little parodies of Marvel.
Right.
Actually, on the CGS site, they had Year One that was running up there. They were linked to that one, which was all Marvel. And then he actually did a few for our show that he'd put on there. I'll actually try to put links directly on our site to link to some of those because they were really good. You know, those type of 3-panel parodies, I think, are geared towards everybody. They're accessible to younger children, but they're also accessible to adults. That's why I always get worried when I see branding like that because it seems like it's limiting a potential audience. Because that really should be a book. You know, those books should really be ones that kind of have actually a larger audience appeal because of the fact that they can be read by anyone, if that makes sense. Like, for a Billy Batson to be canceled, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. That book should be selling gangbusters because it's not only targeted towards the comic core audience, but it can be read by younger children. You know, it's one of those books that, you know, parents don't have to worry about, can my kid read this or not? Yes, They can. And it is one of those books that I think it's enjoyable about everybody. So, I don't know. I get worried about those lines.
Question for you guys. Mm-hmm. How did we go from talking about the teaser page to Johnny DC?
Aqualad. Aqualad. We talked about Aqualad and how his costume... I actually do know how he got to this, and I'll segue us back. But the Aqualad costume, we were talking about that, how it was possibly coming out around the time of the Young Justice cartoon, because there's an Aqualad in that has a similar costume. So that was where that all came from.
Okay.
Actually, back at that teaser image, because we'll wrap that up real quick, now that you mentioned that. Martian Manhunter, we see him stoking a fire by the tree. Now, I don't know if that means that he's in the forest there, but what is with the smoke and the Anti-Monitor? And where is the Anti-Monitor? Because we don't really seem to know where he's at right now and what's going on with him, because we haven't seen much of him other than the initial first appearance.
I don't know. It's weird.
Because why is he back? Because they've all got a purpose. I wonder what his is. Captain.
Well, he wasn't one of the ones that died and came back, so I don't think he's considered in the. But he's connected in the story. But I don't know.
Well, he was already dead, and then he did get brought back. But he was already dead before this whole thing.
Yeah, from Crisis
started. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, when the Anti-Monitor is usually in the room, that means that we're going to get a mega battle. And I don't think that's where they're going with this right now.
And then we're looking over here and we see Captain Boomerang's boomerangs covered with blood. We don't see him anywhere, though.
Nope.
So I don't know what his deal is going to be. We have seen what his powers can do.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that he can generate his own boomerangs.
Mm-hmm. In stressful. They made a point of saying in stressful situations.
And then Dead Man. Do you want to see him go dead again? Or do you want to see him remain alive, man?
I think this is the most interesting he's been in a while, just dealing with being alive. I mean, it's just interesting to me for him, because I think if he takes the ring off, I wonder if maybe he'll go back to being dead again.
Oh, you think
if he can take the ring off?
Yeah, but that's interesting. I didn't think of it that way. Is the reason why he's able to do what he does because he skirts between both worlds, not quite being dead yet, but not quite alive either. So is that because he's in between that enabled him to be the kind of person that he is? In many ways, kind of in like what a Black Hand was.
Mm-hmm. Well, he can bring people back.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens there. And then Hal Jordan is a White Lantern looking pretty bad sitting in that white line in the.
Yeah, he's
battery.
he's hurt a bit.
Yeah. And who are they bringing back? Who is Guy Gardner going to bring back that is going to pretty much destroy his friendship with Hal Jordan?
I don't know.
And he's working with Atrocitus.
Yeah.
I'm very curious for that series.
Yeah.
Because the Green Lantern books have just been so good. So more of that is just fine by me. Thank you very much.
More gooder.
More good. Actually, let's go ahead and jump to Superman 701, which was what we were really going to be heading into talking about. I love this cover. This is the first one we see from John Cassaday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he did the cover for Superman 700, did he? I might be wrong on that.
I don't think so. I'm trying to remember what the cover was.
But friend of the show, David Barron, did the colors on this cover, too. That's his symbol next to John Cassaday's. It's a very cool-looking cover. And it's really symbolic of this journey that Superman's going on and grounded.
Very muted.
Yeah.
I have to say, I absolutely loved this issue. Just 100% just absolutely was like, oh my God, this is outstanding.
What was it you liked about it? I agree with you. What was it you liked about it so much?
Well, we always say how some of the interesting stories are where we get to see the man behind, Superman. We get to see just that the human side of him, which is the true strength of Superman is his humanity, even though he's not a human. This, we're seeing just a vulnerability in Clark, in Superman, and it's not just a vulnerability that we're seeing as the readers. The actual people in the DC universe are getting to see this. They're getting to see just this man, not this blurry image who shows up for the big stuff to save the day. He's, getting, back to Earth. He's getting grounded. He's, once again, reestablishing his connection to this planet. I think that's just a great concept with everything he went through, with all the adversity he's had over these past year, starting even back before Pa Kent died. You look at just one after another, boom, 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 big type of turmoil, crisis event he's dealt with. Now he's sitting back. He's, and I just love this, how, just the way it was laid out. You see him just taking his time. And they're like, where are you going? Oh, I'm walking. Well, where are you walking? Walking over there. And it was just that nice just layout where, and even when Lois jumps into the mix and he's talking to Lois, and he's like, they'll get bored eventually. What do you mean? They'll get bored. And sure enough, they do, because it's the media. They're not going to, if there's not some pop and flash going on, they're not going to stick around. Well, he showed them that, and it was just these little small, adventures, or acts of kindness that Superman is doing. I was just like, this is great. This would be just a really just cool moment, to have.
One thing I liked about it, first of all, I didn't see it as vulnerability as much as accessibility, because I didn't feel he was vulnerable at all in this issue. I really felt he was more accessible, which I think is more the vibe you were going for when you were talking about him, because one of the things I like when he's walking around, I feel like he's really taking charge here more than showing weakness. Because if you take a look at what he was doing in 700, he talked to characters like the Flash, and he talked to Batman, Dick Grayson, and he was kind of talking about to the Flash about how he sees the world as a blur, and how that's much. And Flash was pointing out how that's much like what Superman probably sees it as too. And there's so much that they miss because of that. And I think that's the symbolism of him walking right now, is kind of taking a look at what kind of things could heroes be doing that they aren't already doing. And I think it's kind of the point of what he's doing here. There was some interesting discussion on the forum about this that kind of really opened my mind to what is really going on here. And when he's walking around and the things that he's doing, like stopping to take a look at the car, things like that, when he's doing those little bits, I didn't take any of that as him being vulnerable as much as accessible. You feel, and I agree when you were saying we're seeing more of the man here. I 110% agree with you. That's what I like about him. He's accessible. Like, I felt like if I was walking down that street, I could go up and high five Superman. I don't think I would walk up to him and go, "What's wrong, slugger?" I would more high five him and say, "Hey, cool to see you, dude. Thanks for all you do." That type of thing. He's got that kind of vibe right now where it's really kind of just walking around, connecting with people, seeing what kind of things he can do. And he does a lot this issue. It's funny, for an issue where he's doing a lot of walking, he accomplishes a ton in these pages, which is more why I got the vibe of him being accessible versus vulnerable. Because I don't see him like moping about, whereas I was kind of afraid in the first part, when they introduced it, that this was going to be him kind of moping and kind of solemn. I found this issue to be very upbeat and very positive. Even with where it went at the end, I still found it to be a very upbeat and positive issue with some good messages all the way throughout and just kind of a good idea of where this is going. I don't necessarily want to see him walking like this every issue. I mean, as far as where it's going to be like, now we're going to be in a different city doing this same stuff. I want to see that different locations are going to lead to him being involved in different kinds of happenings that kind of show a different flavor of America for him and different things that he's missed. But I sure wanted to take a road trip to Pennsylvania. Darrell, how did you feel about this issue kind of going into it?
I really loved the way that they showed Superman pretty much taking time after such a war. I mean, we had War of the Superman before that, Blackest Night before that, Crisis and everything that's been going on. And when was the last time he just dealt with people one-on-one, just being a part of the world? I mean, he is a world figure, so just being a part of the community that he basically protects 24/7. It was just cool to see that.
When he was talking to that one reporter who was trying to determine whether or not Superman, hey, you don't have your powers, I know. He's getting really snobby and like he was trying to one-up him, like he was going to be the one that scoops everybody and shows the world that, hey, I'm scooping you all. Superman doesn't have his powers right now. And that's what's going on right here. And he grabs the guy, leaps, flies up into the sky and says, would you like to continue this conversation at, 10,000 feet? And the guy comes back down. And it's pretty much so verification, right? That's why I said that I really felt more that this is, more of an accessible guy who's really talking to people and there's more interaction and communication with him, but there's a confidence there as well. Because that's a confident Superman that's doing that.
When I say vulnerable, I am talking accessible because I see being accessible as a vulnerability because I've kind of got messed up issues when it comes to emotions. So we're seeing the exact same thing, just using different wording to describe it.
See, I 100% agree with you there then. And we're totally in sync. I guess what I see, though, and I guess that we see accessibility differently. I see accessibility and the ability to be accessible and to allow yourself to do what he's doing here as a form of strength. Because in order to do this, you have to be a strong person to do what he's doing here. Because he really is just kind of walking around, interacting with everybody that he sees, really showing I don't think it's showing a different side of Superman as far as more so showing what I think we all expect of Superman. We do. I expect Superman that if I'm in some kind of trouble, and this is stuff that Darrell, I think you brought up the films last time when you and I talked about this. That was something that you're right. There's a tie here to what I like about the films because it's not just about the big battles with the villains. It is also moments, and you pointed out some moments from films that this kind of reminded you of.
Yeah, like he saved Lois from the helicopter. I mean, from crashing. He took out a whole bunch of criminals. Pretty much took a boat and lifted the boat and brought it to the prison. But then at the same time, he went and saved a little cat that was in a tree for a little girl that was crying for help. I mean, that's Superman. Like he can go out and defend the world, and he's gone out and defended the galaxy from threats. And at the same time, when he saves somebody like a little old lady walking across the street who might fall or something and the car is coming, he'll save that lady, and that lady will feel like she's the most important person to Superman at that second.
This diner, when he goes into this sequence, it's one of my favorite sequences because I love this moment where as Superman, you could get perks like they would give you free food. I mean, that was no doubt, and I totally would see in that moment that, he's Superman, he does so much, he's kind of justified in getting the free food. I would have had no issue with it. He does. I love that moment because it shows right here, now I want to pay my way. This is what I'm here for. I want to do that. And he does it by, straightening up that whole room. And I love how the lady makes the comment of, we're not letting you go. You got to stay here because you sure know what you're doing. And I like those little bits because it is one of those situations where because he was sitting there, it's like the cowboy that goes into the saloon Where are you going to get information from the locals at the social gathering place? In this place, it just happened to be the diner. And he finds out this information about, this drug situation that he wouldn't have found out about because this wouldn't have been on the JLA radar.
Yeah.
Back in 700 when Batman was talking about the big events that we mostly get involved in, this would be something too small to be on their radar. They wouldn't have caught this whole drug thing that's going on in this place, and something that's scaring the people. It's really something where, because they're staying so underground, they really would be, it was, what was it, Final Crisis Aftermath Run. When they had that underground group of villains that were there. This is very similar to that, where you could see that there in the DC universe, there are certain villains because, certain criminals, because of the fact that they're too small fish, they would be missed by the blur of the heroes going by onto something bigger, to your Lex Luthors, to your Metallos, to your Brainiacs and things like that. And this is a situation where now, he's like, okay, I'm here. This is a real problem that's affecting this community. And it's keeping these people from living a better, more satisfying life, a safer life. How many people are being hurt because of this situation? How many people are being led down a bad path because of this situation? And he takes this opportunity to look at the situation and say, what can I do here? The police are powerless. But what can I do? And you can't go in there and beat everybody up. That's not going to solve the problem. So I love his creative way of handling it. He goes there and, through that situation, he uses his X-ray vision and the heat vision to take out their stashes and basically, tells and empowers one of the locals to say to them, you tell them that I'm going to come back every couple weeks and do the same thing until they're gone. And it was an interesting dilemma as far as, I loved the explanation of, this isn't going to destroy them or end them for good. Yes, they'll probably move somewhere else, but it fixes this for now. This is today. This is what we can do today. We can deal with that problem, at another time. That's a different problem. This fixes this problem right now. I actually liked that. Because, to me, not every situation, not every solution is going to solve a problem permanently. Some problems have to be, you have to find creative ways to keep dealing with them along the way. And I like the idea that, they're showing that Superman doesn't always, it's not about Superman fixing everything permanently. It's about making a situation better now. And, what can we all do to work together to make that situation better? Because after that's done, then the people of that town have to do something to, they're kind of empowered there to do something to try and clean up that part of the neighborhood, to revitalize it, turn it into something new, which again is another problem. That's not going to be so easy to do because that part of the neighborhood's got a bad nature to it. And I love that as I was reading this story, I was taking it beyond okay, after Superman's done with this, what's going to happen to this area? And I was actually thinking through that. And that was something where, okay, they've taken me deep into the story where I'm thinking beyond the event. I'm thinking about what happens when Soup's gone.
This reminds me of the issue, it was actually like the last season of Justice League Unlimited, the cartoon, where what was the big issue between the conflict between what Batman was saying to Superman, how far do we go in terms of we can't just lord over everyone and rule people. You get to a point where you can't be the savior for the world, but you can encourage people to do something positive for their own community.
Yeah. And see, I like those kind of explorations because it actually makes the universe seem more real to me. Mm-hmm. It adds some depth to it. And I love this story because it's very much Superman. It's I felt like this was a confident Superman. And Jim, whether you call it a vulnerability or accessibility, you and I are dead on with what this guy is right now. I mean, mm-hmm. You and I are very in sync as far as how we're seeing him right now. There's something about him where he's more personable. There's, he's down to the personal level. And this reminds me of, remember when we saw Freddie Williams did the guest art on that issue where it was Superman and Blue Beetle, and they were kind of flying together, and there was that moment where, Superman was talking to Blue Beetle, and he turned around, he had that smile of the two of them, that iconic, Superman flying away with Blue Beetle there as well. He felt more accessible there. There was something, I feel that same vibe here. That was two superheroes together in a very I feel this same vibe here, and it's very much the Superman I love. like. And like I said, I don't want every issue to be like this issue, and I don't see that being the case. I see every issue being different because he's going to be exploring different parts of America. But I very much liked the flow of this issue and how it went. Then we went to the, because some of them were 2 to 3 page little mini arcs in here of situations he encounters. But then there were single page ones like the kids who were about ready to speed.
Yeah.
And Superman overhears it and just kind of stops them. But my favorite one was this old man who was sitting on his porch where he was walking by and just happened to overhear the conversation between the man and the wife. And this would be something I saw him connecting to his own father and what happened to Jonathan Kent. And, he sees your heartbeat is beating erratically. I think you need to see someone about it. Sooner would be better than later, considerably. And, I'm sorry, if Superman comes up to my porch and starts telling me I need to go to the doctor now, which is basically what Superman said in probably the most tactful way that you can say that, because he's trying to say, what I'm seeing here from you, you're in real danger, pal. He said that in probably the most tactful way possible, and I loved that because it felt a little awkward, just the right amount of awkward, like Superman was trying to find the right words to not totally alarm the guy, but yet you want to give him a kick to the pants too, which is a tough, awkward balance when you're in those situations. And I love that. The guy's going in, Jeannie, where's the doctor's number? That moment was awesome because it was true and real.
I love the artwork of these panels because you see Soup off in the background on that first panel. Then he's a little bit closer and he's actually turned. You see him starting to do his turn towards the house, and then you see him on the porch. I thought that was just a cool concept where, because in that second panel, you see him actually, he's got his line of sight where he's going right to that front porch, the steps of the front porch. I thought that was a nice, kind of way to do it.
We were fans of Eddie Barrow's run on Titans.
Yeah.
When he did the artwork. Teen Titans, I should say. We did the artwork.
And Action Comics, too.
Oh, yeah. Very good runs. And beautiful artwork. I love seeing him here. The one bit that really pulled at my heartstrings, and just it was handled so well, was the jumper.
Yeah.
Just the way that Superman handled this. And really how it was about listening. And really giving this person the opportunity, because Superman could have gone up there and flown up there and grabbed this person and forced them down. We all know that, and I think that's what the police expected him to. I know that's what the police expected him to do.
Yeah, they did.
But one of the things that I like about this journey that he's going on, it's not about forcing issues. It's about what can I do to improve the human condition. Mm-hmm. And I think he's getting back to the core root of who he is. What can I do as a hero to make things really better? What kind of things can I do to help empower people and help make their and these moments in here, there's a lot of them where, sure, he's fixing things, but at the same time, this moment with this girl, because he's Superman, he has that one opportunity where, because she knows his MO, she knows he's honest, she knows he's truthful, things like that she can get him to promise things and feel some comfort that, okay, I have control of this situation, which is what she really needs at this moment, and yet this guy's going to listen to me. He's going to really hear me out. And Superman's sitting there listening to her. He's giving her, right now in that moment, he's making her feel like she is the most important person in the world at a time where she needs that. Because she feels like it's all worthless. There is nothing worth living for. And, she's laying out something where she's laying out a very powerful argument as to why, she wants to end it all. Superman, I love that bit where he says to her, if you can find in your heart that you could have possibility of one more day of happiness, reach out and grab my hand. It's one of those things. And then, and if you can't, then it's the different end of the situation. But reaching in there knowing that just from talking to this person that there's something in there to reach. I love the power of that moment because you got to wonder, what would he have done if she didn't? And I don't know that he could give an answer. And I loved when he landed and the police officer asked him. I firmly believe if she was falling, he would have flown down and caught her. Yeah. But I think in that moment, because he made that promise to her, I don't think, like anybody in that situation, unless you're actually in the situation where it happens, it's not a question you can honestly answer. And his silence with the police officer said to me that he's in that moment where and that was true and human too, and very real. You can't answer that question honestly unless you're there. And that's why he walks away in silence, because he can't answer it at that moment. Because, thank goodness she reached out and grabbed him. Mm-hmm. And, he had that moment, that one full page where he was hugging her was just such a powerful, beautiful picture. And it just showed the strength and the power and the validity of the struggle people go through when they're at that stage where life is so bad that you could end it. I couldn't imagine standing on the side of a building ready to jump. And what would put me in that state of mind where I would feel life was so hopeless that I could do that. But I love that this moment was very sensitive to the fact that there are people who genuinely feel this, and it's very awkward. I love that Robin issue. I always refer to that with Adam Beechin and Freddie Williams. Just how powerful that issue was. This is another one of those where I really loved this issue because of how powerful and how respectful it was to the fact that it's, we don't know that her life's going to be great after this. We don't know what she's going to go through after this. We know that just right now, she chose to believe that there is going to be possibly one day where she could be happy. In one single day where she could be happy. And that was worth it enough to go down with Superman at this time and not make that choice. Her journey is going to be very rough after this, and I love that I never felt after this that all of a sudden a magic wand was waved and her life was fixed. That was the powerful moment in this issue. And that I love how diverse this issue is because there's very simple problems to, the harder problems of the drug dealers and this. And I love how each one was handled. Some of them were very clean in their ending, and some of them were not so clean. He solved the problem for right now, but, what the future is going to bring is still up in the air. And I like that because it's honest.
He could have saved her. I mean, he wouldn't even have saved her. If he had grabbed her and brought her back down, that's not going to take away her wanting to kill herself. And she could just wait another day or another week and find some other way to do it. He helped her to think through the choice she was about to make.
Now, the story he tells about a friend who got ill and took her life and all that stuff, is that a real Superman story? Is that from the past issues or something? Or
I'm thinking it is. It sounded familiar when I was reading it, but I didn't go back and try to find something in reference to it, so I don't know. But it just sounds familiar to me.
There's been so many Superman stories. I'm with you, Darrell, in the sense that I don't remember the specific story. As far as it did sound familiar to me too, but I don't remember the specific story. And I think what always happens with me with Superman, I've read so many Superman stories over the year, but it's been like, I read some in the 70s. I read quite a bit in the 80s. Read some in the 90s. Read quite a bit in the 2000s. For the last 10 years, I've been reading quite a bit of Superman. But it's been so, there's been gaps, in each of those decades that I know I've read something like that, but I don't know if it's specifically being referenced here.
Right.
I just loved how contemporary this particular one felt. So I don't know. Actually, if any of our listeners out there know the specific reference, if there really is a story that's being referenced there and you know specifically which one it is, I would love to know. Because I'm with you, Jay. I love that kind of stuff. I love knowing, if there actually is a specific tie. I don't know that there needs to be one, but it'd be kind of cool if there was. That'd be good. If there was a story, that'd be a good point for an editor's note.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking it.
Yeah.
I even think, was there a Legion story where something like that happened, or
maybe? Yeah, that's right. It doesn't have to be a present day story. It could have been a future story where he was doing so. Because Legionnaires have dealt with some very, very heavy emotional issues over the years. So this last bit with the story with the guy where he's talking to him, where the guy's basically chastising him, it shows that he's in a different place after the slap. This isn't the confusion that he had after the slap. I think this issue and taking this first step on this journey has given him a better understanding. He's not quite where he wants to be yet from this journey, but he's learned a lot in just this single issue. Because, shouldn't you be out there saving the world or something? You're a hero, right? Isn't that what heroes do? Because he's chastising him for being on a walk. To be a hero, and I'm not saying I am one, I'm just saying, is to live your life in a small cell whose bars are the principles and rules that define what you will and won't accept. Injustice, cruelty, and murder. On the night they threw Henry Thoreau in the jail for civil disobedience, a friend came to see him saying, "Henry, what are you doing in here?" Thoreau said, "No. The question is, what are you doing out there? If I am lucky enough, privileged enough, to live in that cell, to serve in that box with the word hero written on it, then I say to you, from somewhere deep inside that box, what are you doing out there?" And I love that because this is a lot of what the theme of this issue is. It isn't just about Superman solving problems. He's empowering people in a lot of these ways. He's using his powers to help push things in the right direction and give people the opportunity to make the fixes. Like the drug dealers, a great example of that. He didn't totally clean up that neighborhood. He didn't change it. All he did was eliminate part of the problem. Give them an opportunity now. Where do you go tomorrow from here? We're in this place now. Where do you go tomorrow from here? when they eventually go, this eventually works and gets them to go, where do you go from here? It's a powerful thing. The girl on the ledge, where do you go from here? The guys who were trying to speed, all those little things, that he was doing, each one of them's kind of, he didn't do anything major other than, with the guy with the car trouble. He could have flew him, to where he needed to go. He didn't do that. He just pointed out where the problem was so the guy could fix it himself.
Yeah.
It was interesting that, the guy with the heart, he didn't fly him to the doctor's office. He said, hey, here's what's going on, buddy. In each of those cases, he gave people just what they needed from Superman to then be empowered to do something themselves. And that was interesting. I loved that aspect of this issue, was the sense of empowerment he was giving people. And I think that's an important message that Superman gives. My favorite Superman stories are the ones where after I'm done, I want to better myself in some way. He makes me feel like he makes me feel like I can't be Superman, but I can certainly be more than I am. And that's, I think, the role of Superman as a hero in comics, what he does for his readers, for whether the story's, him doing some unending battle against some, a villain that you're like, wow, they finally got Superman's number and he keeps going, like a Doomsday type of thing, where, or Brainiac, the most recent Brainiac story where it was so creepy and you were wondering how Superman would overcome it, and he did. And, those moments, yes, that gives me that same charge, but this gave me that same feeling in a very simple story where he's walking, which on the surface, if you just say he's walking, you're not getting the whole vibe of what's really happening in this issue.
Because I think he felt like he tried to encourage his own people, the Kryptonians, and it didn't work. He wasn't able to inspire them to be better or do better. And all of that, I think that affected him to the point of him, what he's doing now. He's like, I'm not here to teach you what to do. I'm doing things and I'm teaching by example. Now, either you follow the example or you don't. But my job is just to be who I am. I have a line that I won't cross. I have beliefs that I have. That doesn't mean I'm judging your beliefs. But, you have to decide what your line is. What you won't deal, what line you won't cross, what you won't let go by, and make that decision on your own.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
It was a special issue. It was something for a kickoff of this. I'm really happy with the direction Superman's going in for the next 12 issues.
Mm-hmm. I want to go on a walkabout. Just the concept, the idea of just going out there and just walking and just seeing. Do what he's doing. I want to do that. I know it sounds weird, and I admit it, but it just, for some reason, this just clicked to me, and I was like, that's a neat. It's like when I watched Forrest Gump. The movie Forrest Gump. I wanted to run across the country, thinking, wow, that is a neat idea. That'd be kind of an interesting adventure just to do that. But I'm not about to run across the country. That's not going to happen. But still, just that idea of just slowing down and just taking your time. When I was in Italy, my dad and I would go on walkabouts. On days when we didn't have anything solid planned, we'd walk out of my brother's house and then pick a direction, and we'd walk that way for a couple hours, just seeing the Italian countryside. And it was just this really cool experience that it's while you're there, you're just looking around, like, oh, cool, hey, look at that, that's kind of neat. Hey, let me take a picture of that kind of deal. So it's just the way you get just so in touch with an area. Just by doing this simple walking is really, a cool way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Guys, I want to give a quick shout out to a book. Are either of you reading Jonah Hex monthly?
No, I usually do a trade.
Yeah.
And you do the same thing?
Yep.
Issue number 57, and I'm not going to spoil anything in it. It's called Tall Tales. And this is a series that I could not possibly go to trade on. And I'm not saying you're wrong for doing it. This issue is one of those where it focuses on how legends can be exaggerated by people telling them, and how Hex can utilize that. You wonder, like, these kids have this situation where Jonah Hex killed all these people with one bullet, and it's one of those things where it was like a magic bullet, kind of like that whole conspiracy theory bullet, where it bounced off of here and then went through this guy and then bounced off of here, went through that guy, and it was in a canyon. And it was an exaggerated story where Jonah Hex probably really did kill all those people. But, the story after being passed on, it's like playing the game of telephone where it was passed on. And Jonah, the legend works in Jonah's behalf. But, it's like any legend with Jonah. There's definitely truth there. But what is the actual story, how did it actually happen, and you know. But the cool part is, and this issue was so awesome, when he's in town, he's there with Batlash, the Trigger Twin, Scalp Hunter, Nighthawk, and Cinnamon.
Wow.
Nice.
You know, which, you know, then we've got the Hawkman, Hawkwoman reference, you know, to their history. You know, there's so much Hawk stuff going on in the DC universe right now. I love it. And this is one of the things I love about their reincarnation is the fact that I get to see them in Jonah Hex. Like, this is so awesome. Yeah. But it was great because he has these moments where you get to see that his allies and him don't get along very well.
No, not Jonah Hex.
What? Really? He's such a people person.
But I love that aspect of it. And I love how that hasn't changed because he's an abrasive, hard to get along with guy. Just exactly what you guys are chuckling about. And it's a great issue for anybody who, you know, if you saw the film and you're kind of like, all right, I'm interested in Jonah Hex right now. I want to see what he's really like in the comics. This is a great issue where you can pick up issue 57. It's very it's one of those one-shot issues, very self-contained. It's a fantastic story where you get to see a great Jonah Hex adventure, but then again you get to see him also interact in the aftermath of one of his adventures with civilians, and just to see why he's so ornery and so hard to get along with. It's great. It's just a really cool book. And I don't want to say too much more because I know you guys read it in trade, so you're going to get to enjoy this issue when you get to see it in trade. But I do recommend for anybody, if you're not reading Jonah Hex either in trade or in single issues, please do yourself a favor and pick one up. Like I said, it's one of the great things about the book is they do some multi-parters sometimes, but there's a lot of issues like this one, Tall Tales, where you can pick up a single issue and it's a self-contained story. Even if you're just trying out Jonah Hex to see if it's for you, you at least get a contained story in that experience. So you can feel very satisfied you get a beginning, middle, and ending. And if it wasn't your cup of tea, you know, hopefully you'll enjoy that ride for that issue. But it's a great jumping on and launching point for anybody. So I highly recommend this to anybody not reading this book.
Library, because a lot of times the library will have a lot of Jonah Hex trade, and just try one out.
Yeah, and we've actually talked about this off the air. Interlibrary loans for people out there. You know, if your library doesn't have trades, ask them. You know, most of your libraries now you can access actually from your computer, the library, and actually reserve books if you have a library card. Right from the library, do interlibrary loans and things like that. But talk to your librarians and ask. What is your library loan policy? How do I do that? You can usually get almost anything that's currently out by that method. And it's a great way to try things out and check and see what books are for you and support the libraries and support the libraries getting more trade paperbacks that way, because that's good for the comic industry too. The more that are going to libraries, that's more sales for the comic industry. That's always a good thing.
Oh, no, you don't!
Want to remind everyone to check out ComicCollectorLive.com, ComicCollectorLive.com, your comic book management source. I'm putting this together pretty quickly, so I didn't have a chance to put up the links for Darrell's podcast. Darrell's part of the Fixers Hideout, Comic Book Roadshow, and No Apologies. We did a segment for Batman Odyssey #1, which is going to be airing on our next episode, and we shouted out all of David's podcasts and how to become a part of them. But there are links in the podcast section on RagingBullets.com where you can check out his podcast. And like I said, on our next episode, there will be more of a formal setup to his podcast as well. But I wanted to shout him out and thank him for joining us for this segment, and there will be more of Darrell on the next episode as well. So very cool. Thank you again, Darrell, for joining us, because we really had a blast talking to you. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Welcome to Tranquility, One Foot in the Grave, issue number 3 of 6, written by Gail Simone, art by Horatio Dominguez, cover by Neil Googe. Best-selling writer Gail Simone's acclaimed series continues. Mayor Fury's return to Tranquility has been shocking and a brutal affair. But the most brutal moment arrives when the identity of the villain is revealed. Can super strength and invulnerability overcome a broken heart? This first issue just kicked off with a bang, and I'm a huge fan of it. And if you haven't picked up the first 12 issues, feel very comfortable picking up this series, because issue number 1 really is very accessible to anybody. And it's actually, if anything, it's going to make you want to go back and pick up the other ones, because you're probably going to enjoy it enough to do that, because it's a wonderful, wonderful series. Regularly $3.99, 40% off, only $2.39. Batman the Cult over at InStockTrades.com. Batman the Cult, a new printing of the classic Batman tale collecting the 4-issue miniseries from 1989. Deacon Backfire, a charismatic shaman with roots as old as Gotham City itself, has amassed the city's homeless into an army, one that he seemingly uses to fight crime, but Blackfire has a hidden agenda. Regularly $19.99, 47% off, only $10.59. That's by Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightson. That's InStockTrades.com, your source for your hardcovers and trade paperback, actually any of your collected edition needs. And DCBService.com, your pre-order source. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, the Batman Odyssey #1 segment is going to be on our next part of this episode, along with we have a lot of listener voicemails we're going to get to. If I wasn't heading on vacation, I would have done that right now, but I want to get an episode out to you today to make sure you have some of the content to listen to over the weekend. On Tuesday, I'm going to release a brand new show. That'll be another 2-hour one like this one goes with Batman Odyssey #1. We're going to have some listener voicemails. We're going to start talking a little bit of the San Diego Con. Then it looks like the next episode after that, we're going to have Welcome to Tranquility #1, more San Diego Comic Con, more new comic chat, and listener voicemails and content like that as well. So you're going to get a couple episodes next week from us. So very cool. Jim, I want to thank Darrell Taylor for joining us, and this is such a wonderful episode. It's glad to have the chance to talk about some great books. Welcome back to you. This is actually our first recording since you've returned from Italy. Our next episode, Jim, we're going to discuss the San Diego Comic-Con, in particular the news coming out of the San Diego Comic-Con. As we've always done, we're not going to just regurgitate the news. It's really going to be all about us talking about what we think about the news coming out of there. Do we have any speculation coming out of it? What bits were we most excited about and why? What we think it means for the DC Universe in the future, because this is the time of year where we really find all the big information. So that's going to be our next show next week. Also, as I mentioned at the start of this one, we're definitely going to be talking Welcome to Tranquility and probably more. The San Diego Con coverage will either go 1 or 2 episodes depending on, the amount of material that we need to cover, but we're definitely going to be also throwing in on both of those episodes material from all the new books that are out there. We've got a lot of stuff to discuss.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff.
Well, we will see everyone next week.
Bye!